anti-anything.
Yes, it's a muy aggressive one these days. So it's still some ate.
Here I go, anti-anything.
Oh, oh.
It functions everywhere, sometimes without stopping, sometimes discontinuously. It breathes, it heats, it eats, it shits, it fucks. One mistake ever said the it everywhere. It is machines, not at all metaphorically. Machines of machines with their couplings, their connections. An organ machine is connected with a source machine, one emits a flux which the other cuts. The breast is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth a machine coupled to that one. The mouth of the anorexic hesitates between an eating machine, an anal machine, a talking machine, a breathing machine, deeper machine, asthma, attack. This is why we are all tinkerers, each with their own little machines. An organ machine for an energy machine. There are always flux and cuts. Judge Schreber 5 has divine rays in his ass. Solar anus. And rest assured it works. Judge Schreber feels something, produced of something, and theorized about it. Something is being deduced effects of machines, not metaphors. Of the schizophrenic. It's a better model than the neurotic lying on the couch. A bit of fresh air relationship with the outside. Take the stroll of Lenz into the outdoors. It is different from moments when Lenz finds himself with his good pastor, who forces him to situate himself socially in relation to God, in relation to Father, in relation to Mother. On the contrary, he is in the mountains under the snow with other gods, or without God at all, without family, without father or mother, with nature. What does my father want? Can he give me better? Impossible! Leave me alone. Everything is a machine. And three celestial machines, the stars are rainbows, alpine machines, each coupled with those of his body, noise machine. Uninterrupted, idle instrumented.
Well, hello, everybody. I hope all of you are well. Welcome to the Quarantine Collective's ongoing reading of Anti-Oedipus, Take 4. We are making our way. The attempt is to try to go through and retranslate, honestly, the paragraphs we're at, translate the first time, the actual works of AO, which I think help give us a better take, a better understanding of the work, and also, as I like to joke, people are really happy to tell me where I'm stupid, and that yields the best conversations and best ways for us to understand these things. So, with that said, we are 5 paragraphs. This reading is going to take the rest of my life. We're a handful of paragraphs in at this point, starting with the coupling of connective synthesis. If you have your usual translation here, I do suggest having the Hurley translation out so you can see the divergence. There is a huge amount of divergence. This is not a short paragraph. Neither is the next that we're going to be doing. So as we make our way through, don't hesitate to ask questions about why a word was chosen. I'll be talking about it when we go sentence by sentence. Don't hesitate to correct me. Let me know where I'm off, where I'm wrong, or where you think a better translation may be apt. As always, If you appreciate what I do, drop a super chat, especially if I'm doing an annotation or a correction. You get to be immortalized if that's the case. And otherwise, we're just going to make our way through. How's everyone doing? Everyone doing well? Everyone good here? Here in the Discord?
Doing pretty well.
Yeah, see, that's good. That's good. And I hope all of you at home are doing well as well. So we'll just make our way through this. This is a lot. So just last week.
What page are you on?
JK, I can hear myself through your.
Yeah, what page are we on?
We are we're on paragraph 5, I believe. Paragraph 5. If 6 is 7-ish. We're on the paragraph that starts the coupling of connective synthesis. We're going paragraph by paragraph, not really pages. It's page 6 on Hurley's. Thank you, Collie. Off we go. The coupling of connective synthesis, partial object flux, thus also has another form. Product producing. Thank you, Lone Pantaloons, for the 10. There is always producing grafted onto the product, which is why desiring production is production of production, like any machine of machine. One cannot be content with the idealist category of expression. One should not think to describe the schizophrenic object without connecting it to the process of production. The notebooks of Art Brut are its living demonstration, and thereby deny that there is an entity of the schizophrenic. Or else Henri Michaud describes a schizophrenic table in terms of a procedure of production, which is that of desire. Quote, as soon as it had been noticed, it continued to occupy the mind. It continued even, I don't know what, its own affair, no doubt. What struck one was that, not being simple, it was not truly complex either. Complex from the outset, or by intention, or from a complicated plan. Rather, desimplified as it worked. As it was a table with add-ons. As were certain drawings of schizophrenics said to be stuffed, as if it was finished. It was insofar as there was no longer any way to add anything to it. Table which had become more and more an accumulation, less and less a table. It was appropriate to no use, to nothing that one expects of a table. Heavy, cumbersome, it was barely transportable. One did not know how to take it, neither mentally nor manually. The top, the useful part of the table, progressively reduced, disappeared, being so little in relation to the cumbersome structure that one no longer thought of the whole as a table, but as a piece of furniture apart, an unknown instrument of which one would have no use. Dehumanized table, which had no ease, which was not bourgeois, not rustic, not country, not kitchen, not work, which lent itself to nothing, which resisted, refused service and communication. In it, something dismayed, petrified. It could have recalled a stopped motor. End quote. The schizophrenic is the universal producer. There is no occasion to distinguish here the producing and its product. At least, the produced object carries it here into a new producing. The table continues its own affair. The top is eaten by the structure. The non-termination of the table is an imperative of production. When Levi-Strauss defines tinkering, he proposes a set of well-linked characteristics. The possession of a stock or of a multiple, heteroclite, and nonetheless limited code. The capacity to make fragments enter into always new fragments, whence follows an indifference of producing and product, of the instrumental ensemble, and of the ensemble to be realized. The satisfaction of the bricoleur, tinkerer, I fight over that, when he connects something onto an electrical conduit, when he diverts a water conduit, would be poorly explained by a game of Papa Mammon, or by the pleasure of transgression. The rule of always producing, of grafting producing onto the product, is the character of machines of desire, or of primary production. Production of production. A painting by Richard Lindner, Boy with Machine, shows an enormous and turgid child having grafted, making function of one of his little machines of desire onto a big technical social machine, for, we shall see, this is already true of the child. It's a lot. Bricoleur is better. So we'll get to why I made the choice to stay with Tinkerer, and we can go back and forth on it. That'll be fine. Overall, let's talk about what's happening in this paragraph, and then we'll kind of dive into each bit. As in the last couple paragraphs, as they've been sort of beginning to build desiring production and how it operates, they've noticed the first syntheses. We've talked about this, the connective synthesis. They talked about it in its first form, but here is the second, and that is product producing, is the phrase that they use here. The hyphen is incredibly important, which means that production is always grafted onto its product. Desiring production, essentially a production of production. They sort of argue that the schizophrenic object can't be described through these idealist categories of expression, as they say, but instead you have to talk about the processes of production. They talk about Art Brut notebooks. They talk about Michaud's description of the schizophrenic table that is exceeding use value and functional categorization. All of this they then link to Strauss's concept of bricolage, which we went over a little bit ago, where bricolage, the bricoleur, the one doing the bricolage, is really more, it's an indifference between producing and product. It's not really about tool or result. It's kind of both. And these things mirror desiring production for them. And the example of the child at the very end of this, they say, oh, it can't be reduced to the Oedipal, the papa mama thing, right? And they say, look at Lindner's painting of a child. This is someone who's plugged into a social techno machine, because this is what children do. If you have never been around children, you may have forgotten, what you were like as a child, but most of us built machines. Children do this. It's incredibly normal. They'll take a bunch of stuff and put it together and go, oh, this is a thing that does blah, blah, blah. That it doesn't. It's mostly wood blocks, but they claim it's doing it. This is, for them, it's the production of production. This is sort of the way that even children operate. And that's what they're kind of driving towards, that they're like, hey, this is how this first step of production works. It's not just the coupling, but also the product production in it. And this is kind of, this paragraph really dives into it. The schizophrenic table we'll go through, but that's kind of the setup overall. Is it everyone kind of getting that jam from this? The audio's okay? Good. The audio's okay. Happy day. Good Lord. Bricoleur is, we'll get to it, because there's specifics, and who they're referring to is kind of the things that matter in these different places. But we'll get through it, and we'll talk through kind of each line, I think, is what I'm going to push for here, because I think it's probably the best move. And then we'll make our way through. And there is, I have fun questions for French speakers, because there's a couple of conversations to be had here. The opening, the first line. This is there's a big shift here already from the Hurley translation. If you have the Hurley translation, it opens, hence the coupling that takes place within the partial object flow connective synthesis also has another form, product producing. They added just a huge amount. Like literally what I put here is the sentence. It's the coupling of connective synthesis, partial object flux, thus also has another form, product producing. The phrasing object partial flux is in apposition to the connective synthesis here. It is not about subordinating it to it. So to say within is something that is really added here. For writers like D&G who are excessively topological in how they talk about things, when they don't say a thing is within another thing or subordinated to, and you add that, you're doing to me a significant disservice to the idea. you're flattening the setup here. To say it takes place within, it is playing in a funny way as I read it. The way it reads in French to me is the whole point is that the connective syntheses, its very substance is the coupling of partial object and flux. That is how it reads, the coupling of the connective synthesis. The partial object flux thus also has another form, product producing. We're not talking about something subordinated to or above. It is within it, right? Hello? Josh?
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, don't be sorry. In case you had a point, you're fine. The second part of this that's really interesting is product producing. Product producing with a slash implies an either or. These are maybe just how I read things, but that's not it for me. Because what they're driving at, the connective syntheses, which is, again, we're talking in almost Kantian terms, the logic of partial objects that cut flux. It is the and then connective syntheses is not something that operates as extraction from flow, which would be kind of how Hurley's putting it. It's about, in that moment, it's also generating a product producing coupling where what is produced is the site of new production as well. The coupling, the and then produces production. And the first synthesis of the unconscious, they just went through this in the previous. They're talking about the setup here. I mentioned last week that they're taking a great deal from Marx. This is not diverging still. This is still Grundrisse, which you should just fucking read. It will really help with DG and especially Anti-Oedipus a lot. In Grundrisse, production, distribution, and exchange and consumption are moments of a single process, right? So production is the production of the producer. These things all happen slammed together. It is moments of a process, but you can't like pull it out. You can't extricate one without the others. They're not idealized categories. These are moments of a process that we've identified. Labor is not something you can really pull out. Labor is part of these process. This is Marx's sort of core thinking. So for them, when they're pulling this up and they're talking about the production of production, the product is not separable from its producing, and in turn produces as well. And so sorry, go ahead for it.
Oh, no. My bad. I put on Bluetooth.
I'm getting audio artifacts really quick. Is that just on my end, or is anyone else getting audio artifacts there? It's just me. That's just me. That's fine. All right, we'll let that go. With me having your Bluetooth. Can someone talk for 2 seconds? Anyone?
Testing.
2 seconds.
Thank you. All right, good. That might have been on my end. I don't know what happened, but it's fine. Anyway, so they're driving, and it's, again, this is why this reading is going to take literally like 10 hours, but it's important to sort of get just right. The thing that they're driving at is that production and producing are sort of one and the same, right? The connective synthesis, product producing, identity, what follows in this are examples of that the product producing identity of this connection, the and then is built into these things. The next sentence they say that there is always producing grafted onto the product, which is why desiring production is production of production, like any machine, like machine of machine. I can go into like the reasoning around the translation, but I think it's solid. When we talk about the connective synthesis, a mistake a great number of people make, and they make this when it comes to Marx too, is that the product sort of is an inert thing. A commodity is just produced, and then it's like this neutral, inert, secondary thing. But that's not, commodities aren't that. They aren't just done and then out. Oh, cool, we're good. Off, production's finished. That's not what Marx was saying, but it's also not what they're saying when it comes to how things are produced here. It is already the site. The product is the site of further production. And production is imminent to its product. This is baseline stuff for them. It's one of the fundamental reasons that desire or the forces, the underlying thing, matter. And it's, again, to just say, to comment for Mr. Gogi, why focus on meta production? This isn't really meta production. Like that would be almost an analysis of production itself. This is production where the product is itself productive. So it's not really meta production that they're talking about here. It's imminent to the product itself. Right? Does that make sense? Grundrisse. Marx argues that production produces the producer, the means, and relation all at once. This is not meta production. This isn't a meta about production. It's the production of the producer, and in turn, the producer then produces production. The machine is not defined here by its internal structure, right? That's what Guattari takes from it. It's the external connections and breaks, and it's ongoing. So the production of production that's happening is sort of the setup here, the ontological principle that they're running with, and the examples will sort of be that. Does that make sense? Mr. Gogi, does that make sense? You read the Huffin as combinatory? I do. I don't read the slash as that. The slash that's pretty consistently used in this paragraph, and as well as they go on, product producing versus product producing, which is combinatory. Hurley's translation has a lot of really weird stuff that they do that I find frustrating. The Hurley translation here is producing is always something grafted onto the product. I don't know why they say something. Like it doesn't make sense. Like I don't, it's very weird. It's a very weird choice. Very weird choice. Does this take place on the body of the product? No. In production itself. The body, we don't have a body. We're not at the body yet. Like, don't add those things in. If you're jumping ahead, don't be a rabbit. I'm not a frog. You're not a rabbit. Don't go jumping ahead. That's not what we're doing. We are having this conversation specifically about desiring machines in production. So stay here and don't move on to the next thing yet. We'll be getting to the body in the next paragraph. But don't quite jump ahead yet. Please, I hear someone trying to talk. Zod, I believe it's you. If you can mute up then. Thank you.
What term does he use for eaten, where he says the top is eaten by the structure?
The top is eaten by the structure. We're not. I don't think we're there yet.
Did we not? Oh, my bad.
We're getting there. We're a couple sentences away. I can go look if you want.
No worries. It's up to you.
We'll get there. We'll get there. I'd rather it be a little bit more organic.
Fair enough.
Goddard, I appreciate the apology. It doesn't help to be mean to people. There's this, it's a trite line a lot of people laugh at, but it is a true thing. Hurt people. And it is one of those things that people who are in pain tend to find external expressions of it. So let them be pain, let them cause others pain, and let them tire themselves out like a toddler. It's the best way to be. So sorry. I'm scrolling back to my notes, and this paragraph is way too fucking long. Just paragraphs just too fucking long. Yeah, it's I think that's the way I'd probably put that. So he has the line, one cannot be content with the idealist category of expression. Not how Hurley translates it. Hurley adds a huge amount to it. Hurley translates this as, we cannot accept the idealist category of expression as a satisfactory or sufficient explanation of this phenomena, which is like just laying on so much shit. It literally, one cannot be content with the idealist category of expression. One cannot content oneself with this. The category of expression, this is Hegel and post-Hegel and a handful of others. Like this is that setup here. The category of expression where production is reduced to an externalization of some interiority, right? That the manifestation that's the expression. One's expressing their true self, that sentence. This is idealist. They reject it flatly. They say one cannot be content with this. The thing is that the schizophrenic object doesn't express anything. There's no expressing happening with that. The schizophrenic object, the desire machine, produces. And that's, again, they're targeting Hegel. That's what is playing here. They're targeting the psychoanalytic version, the Zizek'ian strain of how expression and expressionism work. This idea that the expressions outward, especially of the schizophrenic and the autistic, but just in general at all, art someone has or language that they're expressing with their tics or their behavior, the idea that those things express an underlying psychic state or conflict is the thing they're rejecting.
So,
yeah, please.
So I would imagine this is also attacking like B.F. Skinner type behaviorism as well when analyzing behavior.
I don't think I'd say broadly it's rejecting that. It would be rejecting it if the idea is that someone inside is schizophrenic. That's why they have an external expression of this true self, which I don't think all behaviorists would phrase things in this way or talk about like there's a underlying truth. A lot of behavioral science talks about behaviors as more indicative of things or as indices themselves, which we'll come to see is really what they're wanting to push this idea of. And I use it a lot. I think I'm going to use it a lot in the next couple of weeks too. But there's the old Marxist phrase where you say that you cannot tell where the wheat was grown by eating the bread. The idea that downstream or the expression of a thing is its revealing of its true self forgets that you're talking about production of production of production of production. The thing, it just doesn't work itself. Difference in repetition, Deleuze spent a huge amount of time critiquing the idea of expression as representation. He did this in Logic of Sense as well, too, and also in his big book on Spinoza, all of which hit in the late 1960s, actually, I think. Because for him, the distinction, and I hope I say this right, because it's been a while, and I know I have a lot of people who are DNR, like, experts who come here and yell at me. But like, he's talking about constitutive expressionism when it comes to like Spinoza, because expression for Spinoza is productive. Instead of saying that expression is manifestation, sort of the end point of the thing. So they open by saying this coupling and is product producing. Here is almost the inverse of this. This is the negative. If you try to read any of these examples as being an expression, as expressing madness, you miss the productive processes underneath. They're going to say the notebooks of Art Brut, for example, which we'll go through in a second, or the upcoming schizophrenic table. These things aren't expressions of an underlying thing. They're productive elements. They're productive themselves.
Can I ask a really basic question? Of like, do we have a definition for production? Or, like, is that something we already have, or is that something that's like a Marxist thing? Beyond the text?
I think we're going to be saying it's going to be relying on a Marxist thing. But they're going to go deep into it in in section 2 and 3. That's actually a really good question. Let me dig a little bit. Does anyone off the top of their head know? Because that's actually it's a fair question.
Because I mean, like in earlier sessions, we talked about like the production of productions, production of recording, production of consumption, but it's like, I don't know, you say, oh, production of the producer produces, the producer produces production. Like, what are we, what are we talking about? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, it's so for them, production is processing, and they're using it very much in the sort of traditional Marxist sense. I don't think they. Yeah, I just pulled up the PDF. I just went through. I don't think they straight up. I don't think they straight up define production. Actually, just skipping around a little bit. The thing that they're doing, and they keep coming back over and over, is talking about the collapsing of the distinction between production, distribution, and consumption. That these steps that are all considered separate spheres, they're defining all of that as production, as the process of it, the process of recording, the process of these things. So producing, which they're going to be getting into sort of how production happens. I don't think they're going to necessarily say this is what production is, which would be more of a representational thing. I think they're going to be saying, here is how production operates. And that's going to be the thing that they're sort of pushing for, as I would probably argue. But it's actually really, because it's going to end up being, I think, a lighter thing. Holland does talk about this, where it's about the production is the production of reality, the way that one produces evidence in court, I think is the example that Holland uses, that one produces that next thing. It's not so much that someone's wishing a thing or pushing a thing into existence, but it does become real. These are the processes of production. So no, I don't think they give at least yet, a strong definition of what production is explicitly. It's a fair question. Now it makes me want to dig even more. See, now you got my brain going in that. It's a fair question. Let me consider that and come back to it actually a little bit later, maybe between paragraphs. 2 seconds, sorry. Deleuzian production is a radical idea. It reverses the traditional philosophical priority of identity over difference. Well, again, it's radical in that sense, but you could very well argue, and this is, I think, part of the thing he's doing in this paragraph specifically, because you can say, well, look, identity produces difference, which is the other way people talk about this thing, where you start with a thing and then it produces, derivatives and things like that. And difference is then produced. For Deleuze, putting difference first, where difference is the underlying thing, that there's a differential element that is sort of ongoing, and that through that we have this differential is set up. Identity then is produced downstream. He's using it in this sense, but I actually think that's going to be a thing. I'm making a note of it. I'm going to go figure this out, and I will let you know next week at some point, Colin.
I think the concept of the recording of the production, that the production is productive in some capacity, seems to be important for the definition. Not that the production is only following the idea. It's actually reversed, right? The production happens first, and the recording happens, where the organism in question or the machine in question recognizes the action as productive after the fact, and that is sort of what makes it production, right?
Right. Well, and this would be, I think, to go to Colley's question, and I think it's a worthwhile one. Where is the concept of production itself coming from? If it can't just be Marx. This clearly comes from other thinkers. So where is that idea of production coming from, and what is the way it's being used in particular here? Because they are very much, it's baked into all this shit. It's baked into Marxist thinking, and that's a question I haven't asked. So it's one I think I need to answer. Production is in a way retroactive. No, and yes, we'll get there. That's going to be a thing down the road. Right now, what we're talking about is the simply and then, which is the connective synthesis. We're going to be getting into a whole bunch of stuff really fast here. This first section really does run through all of desiring production pretty quick order. And there's a lot of versions of it. But again, production is going to be an interesting, I'll spend time on that. We'll get to it next week. I want to keep going on this though. They continue. One should not think to describe the schizophrenic object without connecting it to the process of production. I love you, Quat. I love you, 92. It's great. The schizophrenic object, which we're going to go through a few. It's going to be these notebooks, which are artwork elements, sort of. It's going to be the table from a show, utterances, gestures, whatever. These things are ontologically inseparable from its actual process of production. The thing itself. Describing a thing apart from how it was made fails to describe the thing and instead is representational. When one thinks to describe the schizophrenic object without connecting it to the process of production, it's doing the work of representation, more or less. More or less. So sorry, go ahead, please.
Okay. I was just going to ask, it's a little tangential, but I was going to ask about this question about difference being producing identity, which is so is that true that for Deleuze and Guattari, difference produces identity? And if so, I was going to ask, do you think this solves Zeno's paradox? I can elaborate if you want.
Deleuze solves Zeno's paradox, actually, and how paradoxes operate in logical sense.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll have to read more logical sense then.
It's a pretty solid. It has to do with the nature of representation versus material and how they operate, how they work together, the nature of the paradox, how we can express, like how expression becomes the thing, all the stuff we're just talking about. Like it's all of those things wrapped. It's complicated, to say the least. But it's really interesting. It is definitely a little tangential though, Alex. It's a little tangential. I like it. I'll make a note of it as well. One moment. Because why the fuck not? Okay. The first example they give are the notebooks of Art Brut, Cahiers de l'Art Brut, which I'm not pronouncing. Sorry. I forgot my southern accent. The Cahiers de l'Art Brut. There was a series of, we'll call them zines of sorts, that basically published the works of people from mental hospitals and psychiatric patients. That's what this was. And this is what they're referring to. If you haven't seen artwork from people who are of varying mental capacities, you can say it. You go, oh, people do. This is the expression in the real world of their thing. But if you're forgetting how the art was made, if you're not connecting the process of what made the art, you're falling into the trap. The works are not symptoms of schizophrenia. They're productions that happen to emerge from what psychiatry calls the process that is labeled schizophrenic. Right? That's the thing that we should be taking. One should not think to describe the schizophrenic object without connecting it to the process of production. The notebooks of Art Brut is a living demonstration, thereby deny there is an entity of the schizophrenic. Or else, and this is going to be a lot at once, we're just going to do the whole thing. The schizophrenic table, I can go back through a handful of things here. It's fine. But the big deal is, what we talk about a table, like it's just, you can be quite literal here, but Michaud, however you pronounce it, had a lot of books on doing drugs and being schizophrenic. I believe it was mescaline, which, as far as I know, is out of style these days. We don't have enough biker gangs. It would apparently be the case. The thing he was writing about here is really interesting. They're going to refer back to Michaud like a fuck ton, but just think about a table, just a table, a table that is just covered in shit is not a table that doesn't work, right? It's covered in shit. It's not, but it's a process that never stopped producing. The table that he's talking about, this table that seems, the table is procedure of production, which is undesired. As soon as it had been noticed, it continued to occupy the mind. It continued even, I don't know what, its own affair, no doubt. What struck one was that, not being simple, it was not complex. Complex from the outset by intention of complicated pain, etc. The shit being added to all of this, the shit being added to the table is like the point, but there's never like a final table. The key feature here is that it is produced by complication, that it is not produced by design. It isn't that someone laid out, here are the 6 things you can have on the table, here's where they go, and here's the layout of them, and then you're done. It's controlled by continuous add-ons, continuous grafting. And it finishes only because you can't keep putting, like, there's a limit. A table has a limit. Like, that's it. This is the process. The schizophrenic table he's talking about is this. It's not for the kitchen. It's not for the work. It's not bourgeois. It's not these things. The table he's describing is just this sort of table that's sitting there doing these things. It's not really for any of this. It is a desiring machine that produced itself to the point of catatonic opacity, I guess you could say. The stop motor that he says at the end here is kind of the telling bit. The next paragraph is introducing the body without organs. But when we talk about there being an immobility, an immobile motor, a stopped motor, this unproductive that is nonetheless the condition of the productive. This is their driving. Everything that they've been saying through this is sort of theoretical, but this is the process actually in process, the table that has all of this stuff, that has all this shit on it. One doesn't know how to take it. Where does it go? Who does it belong to? I thought you meant literal shit. I mean, sure. Why the fuck not? Sometimes. My kids, I made a mistake of buying fake poop for my son, and he thinks it's the best thing ever. He's been putting it everywhere. So yeah, there's shit everywhere in my house. Really, there's a weird feeling to wake up with that in front of your face. The kid thinks it's hilarious. He's right, to be fair. As a table, a machine that holds things, well, that's the thing. It's a table, but the schizophrenic table has just stuff at it. It's not really a kitchen table, right? So, but it holds things. But does it hold things? People etch into it. They do all kinds of stuff. The table kind of can do a lot. It can do a lot. And calling it any of those things really limits it. You ever have a family, maybe your parents or maybe grandparents, where it's like, oh no, that's the living room couch. We don't sit on that couch, which is fucking funny when you think about that at any level. But that's the thing. That's for only certain times and certain guests are allowed to sit there because it's for that thing. This table it continues its own affair. The top continues its own affair, which I really like as a phrasing. This is where we get into the translation of the thing, right? You had the question about the eating the top. Top is eaten by the structure. 1 second. Sorry. Just got to find it. It's fascinating to go through. Sorry. I've got all 3 up and it's like Hurley made a lot of changes, but they also make some changes, which is really interesting. Let's see. The top useful table progressed. Table had its own affair, and in French. Pluto, the top. Yeah, the top. It's very literal. And plateau, which means top, just to be a thing when it comes to like Hurley's setup here. Plateau is a really interesting thing to not translate as plateau. I think plateau is kind of an important word for these guys, and so maybe translating it as anything else would be really weird. So maybe there's a handful of things that I was really stunned that they did. It's fine. I won't go over it. I don't need to shit on everything that time.
Oh, that is interesting. So I assume the translation is not, it's not wrong, right? That makes sense that the top is eaten by the structure, but it's also like maybe the surface is eaten by the structure. I don't know.
So plateau in the topology of it is going to be really important when they talk about this. The top is eaten by the structure. Stratification is going to be important. Yeah. And as Anton's saying, we're kind of going to be talking about 1,000 of those tops, and the tops is the point. Plateaus, like there being mille plateaux, 1,000 of them, 1,000 tops is kind of intended to be. A plateau is like the flattened top of a thing. There are 1,000 different ones is kind of the point they're making. To not use this language feels weird to me. Like it feels weird in itself, but again, they're going to be playing with it throughout. I take it as very literal. It doesn't have to be, but I take it as quite literal. Yeah. Yeah.
What about structure? What word do they use for structure?
Top is eaten by structure. I have le plateau est mangé par la bâtie.
Okay, bâtie.
Which, as I understand it, is, what did I have here? I have notes. Is a assemblage, assembly of several pieces that are joined together, built. It is the built thing.
Yeah, I see frame, assembly, in particular, door frame. Okay, interesting. All right, I see.
Yeah, the framing, the structure. I did structure. It might be framing might actually be better. I'm open, but maybe not.
Yeah, maybe framer, scaffolder. No, yeah.
It's interesting. Bati doesn't really mean body, I don't think.
The etymology that I saw apparently comes from sewing or weaving, actually. It's interesting that it turned into frame over time.
Interesting. Yeah. And again, I'd be open. I have a handful of French people that I annoy about these things, and so I was kind of advised that this one I didn't think twice about, that it means like the built structure. So it eats the structure, more or less, which is the phrasing. Top is eaten by the structure. The non-termination of the table is an imperative of production. When Strauss defines, we'll get to this. This is the next little bit, because I think this is. It sounds like I switched, but let's go back here. The schizophrenic is the universal producer. Here's one where there's no divergence, by the way, between me and Hurley. That's straight up. Traditionally, we talk about the schizophrenic as clinical entity. We're not doing that here. They mean the process is the model for universal production. They've said this in a handful of other ways so far. This is not because the schizophrenic produces everything. The schizophrenic doesn't produce everything. This is because in schizophrenic production, the distinction between producing and product doesn't exist. Again, the inside outside, all these splits and all that doesn't exist inside of this, which would include producing and product. So the truth of production is that it's always the production of production. And again, this is the universal producer as the human from Marx. This is just Marx with French versions of things at this point, with a little bit of an edge. The schizophrenic out for a walk is a better model than neurotic on a couch. These phrasings of things is continuous, and they're saying like this is the universal producer. The schizophrenic is that. There is no occasion to distinguish here the producing and its product. At least the produced object carries it here to a new producing. In desiring production as they're laying out, the process, which is producing, and the result, the product, are indiscernible. Right? And at least the produced object carries it here into a new producing. I can't even tell you how upset I am at the Hurley version. I'll go over that in a second. But the product doesn't sit as a completed thing. The product transports its local, situated character. The son ici. That's the phrasing. At least the produced object carries it here to new producing. The French goes in forgive my southern French accent. Du moins l'objet produit importe tel il son ici dans le nouveau produire, which is now copied into Discord for those of you who just had a heart attack listening to me. Yeah, I know, it's really terrible. Yeah, make fun of my fucking accent all you want. I'll happily give you migraines. The phrasing here is really particular. And it might be worthwhile to talk about the Hurley translation, which is, we need merely note that the pure thisness of the object produced is carried over into a new act of producing. This makes my head hurt, as a thing. It's a terrible translation. Hurley's version, and it's one of the things I think a lot of people do come away with after reading it, and it makes sense, is that it imposes this philosophical interpretation onto what is actually a really simple spatial claim. The product carries its here, its situated, local character, right? The produced object carries its here into a new producing. I didn't have an S in there. That's terrible of me. That's terrible of me. Carries its here. If anyone wants to sponsor the super chat, you can do that. Carries it's possessive, carries its here into new producing. The phrasing they've got there, son ici, is really specific. It's not this, it's not heseity, it's none of those things. It's here. It's situated local character forward into new production. That's the thing that they're talking about when production produces production, or production is production. The imminent contingency that is happening through all of this. This isn't one desiring machine that you're dealing with. Ever. That's not how things work in any functional thing at all. Every desiring machine, every impulse has its own perspective. Every impulse has its own locality, and it carries this through. Carries it through. It carries its here into new producing. They don't put the emphasis on it because it's just in the original French, it just reads straight through. But it's such a it's like one of the most egregious translation. They evoke literal heseity inside of it, which absolutely isn't there. This is like hyper materialism that they've decided to add fancy fucked up words to kind of ruin. It very much upsets me. Sorry. We'll leave that correction there. There is a concrete situated character of the product as it moves into new productive encounters. This is Process and Reality from Whitehead. This is Marx. This is all of this stuff kind of coming through. And so they say the table continues its own affair. They mean this. The table, as desiring machine, is continuing to produce autonomously. It's doing its thing. It's having its own affairs, its own thing. It doesn't give a fuck about anything. Its own immanent process. It is independent of intention you assign. When you say, "Oh no, that's a table. It's for putting things on." No, it's not. It's whatever is kind of being needed, and it's being used. The schizophrenic table that Michel's talking about specifically. And the whole point here is that that's the case. The top is eaten by the structure is, and again, la plateau est mange par la bâtie. Yeah, fuck the translation here. The useful part, which is the plateau, the surface of the table is where there is use value of it, where there is functionality, where there is communication. This is consumed by the productive structure at large. Function is devoured by process. So the table kind of ceases to be a table at some point and becomes sort of this structure in production, more or less. This is an inversion, and it's an interesting inversion if you want to overthink a thing at all. Traditionally, we talk about service and structure in a very different way. Here, though, the plateau being eaten by the bâti, by the built, by the plans, the structural plans, the framing, whatever. This is why they talk about in Mille Plateaux. The plateaus are zones of intensity. They're not functional surfaces. Did my camera die? Nope, it's back. Good. Camera went green for a minute. Wonderful. It's okay. Oh, when I change and I do that, the green goes away because I've got the wrong color. I'm keying out. That's what I get. Sorry, I just noticed a problem in my fucking stream. Let's see. So I think I have a color key here, and I can expand that should do it. So if I go here and I go, nope. Interesting. Still no good. Okay. All right, let's try one more time. There we go. That's fine. Good. There. Figured that one out. Happy day. Yeah, I think that'd be how I'd phrase that. Yeah. The non-termination of the table, as we get towards the end here, the non-termination of the table is an imperative of production. Production, desiring production, can't terminate. There's no end to it. Terminate presumes, like as a concept, termination presumes product separate from process. It means that there's a finished thing ever, an object of representation that can't be built upon, that can't be connected to, that can't continue this. That doesn't work. The imperative to remain unfinished is the imperative of production itself. This is not a failure of the table to reach completion. The success of production is in maintaining the process. It's here as an environment or location. It's locality. It's here. It's here is the phrasing. It's environment. It's location. You're being a little bit too specific, and overall, it's locality. The locality of it would be the phrasing. Not location, but locality. Yeah. So both, it's not meant to be that specific. It's not, its locality, you wouldn't go, oh, it's bringing its environment with it. No, you're breaking these things up again. That's not what we're doing yet. We'll get to where we break things up. Don't worry. Chapter 2 is basically all about that. But we're not quite breaking things up. The product continues to produce by bringing its here with it. Actually, the next example is good. When Levi-Strauss defines tinkering, he proposes a set of well-linked characteristics: the possession of a stock or of a multiple, heteroclite and nonetheless limited code, the capacity to make fragments enter into an always new fragmentations, whence follows an indifference of producing and product, of the instrumental ensemble and of the ensemble to be realized. Hurley literally doubles the number of words in this fucking sentence. I'm not going over it. I use the word tinkerer here. Now, bricoleur is the actual term. And earlier I did translate it as bricoleur, and I probably should leave it as such. Here specifically, I moved it over to tinkerer because the satisfaction of a tinkerer when you connect something onto an electrical outlet, tinkerer is a very different type of bricolage specifically. A tinkerer is someone who messes around with electronics, like literally is a tinkerer, someone who fucks around with machines, basically. And that is what they're kind of bringing out more specifically here, I think would be the phrasing. But to go over it, in his book, The Savage Mind, Levi-Strauss kind of talked about the way that, and they're deploying it as desire and production, but he talked about this thing called a bricolage, which is this way that people would build things based on what they have around them. It isn't so much that this indigenous tribe really likes bamboo, or they like this type of sand, or this type of, it's people build with what's around them. And the assumption that they're like, oh, we only waited until we found this stuff kind of adds intentionality, you might say, to it. Specifically, the distinction he wanted to really drive was between the bricoleur and the engineer. We know the engineers. We have them everywhere now. Our world is built on them. The engineer works from pre-given plans. The engineer works towards determined results that are set up with metrics and all those things. Bricoleur, tinkerer is the word they sometimes use, but bricoleur works with whatever's around. And there isn't really a goal. They're just trying to see what they can do. And D&G here are basically taking Levi-Strauss through Godelier, and they're really saying that this is not just like savage thought, which is the book and kind of what he says. This is actually desiring production, qua desiring production. The setup here is the drive they're pushing. The structural anthropological grounding for this idea of product producing identity that they just went through. They're saying, hey, this is the thing. When Strauss is talking about bricolage, he proposes a set of linked characteristics. First is the possession of a stock or of a multiple, heteroclite and nonetheless limited code, capacity to make fragments enter into always new fragmentation, whence follows an indifference of producing and product of the instrumental ensemble, the ensemble to be realized. The phrasing is really specific in this. And yeah, children are bricoleurs. I've always kept them around, but like, for example, my son, here is, I think it looks like Porygon myself, but this is my Defender. It's a machine that defends, it's a robot that defends my desk. It's cool. He drew all over it, by the way. So it's got like a little personality and stuff. That's what kids do. That's fucking how kids work. That's the thing that they do. That's it.
May I chime in here lightly?
No. Of course you can. I don't. Yes. You ask so politely every time, LJ. And I'm always like, I just kind of want to be a dick and be like, nah.
Nah, you're really into it. I know sometimes you go into this mode and want to be gentle.
Please.
Yeah. Starting from the 60s and 70s, there's this branch of artists that I think the word they use is found object. Sometimes they go to the bankrupt city collect trash and put them onto a 3D canvas. I'm personally not that much a fan of these, but there's a specific procedure of assemblage that these artists practice. They're usually about 50 or 60 years old, and they're pretty active in both coast of the United States, where they make whimsical sculptures that is almost caricatures out of these found objects. And when they found these objects, they don't have intentionality in mind. It's not like they are looking for something exactly. They just see the thing, and then this thing clicked in something in their head, and then the imagery of the assemblage emerged and as their almost part of their so-called artist identity. And this is a increasingly rare practice because of the studio space limit and the very demanding real estate situation in these very city centers. And personally, I found it's quite alarming. But I think this is something.
There's some
similar.
really cool. There's in a handful of places. What's it called? It's a artist collective build thing. There's one in Denver. Wolf. What's it called? God damn it! I can never remember the fucking full name. Doesn't matter. Buddy of mine, Andrew Novick, is actually one of those. He did a documentary we watched in the QC a few years ago called Jean Bonnet's Tricycle, because he literally stole the tricycle from the house after Jean Bonnet disappeared. And he just always collects random shit. He is very much like the artist you're talking about. And he did a piece that was like made of all of these parts of old Denver, like buildings that had been knocked down that were part of like what used to be the cultural center of the city. And he had just been collecting them, and he ended up building this entire room out of them. It's insane. And it's, for someone who grew up in Denver, who knows a lot of it, it's like incredibly emotional to see. And also he's doing something completely different with them. And I can tell you, I know Andrew, there's no way he planned any of that shit out. Like, it very much came together as it did wherever he was, whatever he was working on. It's really cool.
You know, this is interesting because I had a almost identical story from one of my artists at the professor at UCSD. His name is Jonathan Pilishek. And he had a commission from, I think it's the Chicago Institute of Art and some of the museum over there. And he went to the place 3 days before the due deadline of installation, gathered a mound of trash in the backyard alley, and then placed it inside of the museum. And then the show was a huge success. So there is something interesting about the flux, which is the rate of change that is happening in this kind of installations. And I think this is one of the strongest suit of contemporary art compared to the referential and the representational ones. And again, I would like to stress that this kind of practice is really going away. And
no, very much.
Yeah, a lot of my professors are actually quite concerned because the younger generation of artists have very limited exposure with this kind of materiality and interaction with the environment around them.
Fucking kids. I mean, how does it feel to be an old person yelling at clouds? Yeah, we all get there eventually. We all get there eventually, fucking kids. Do better. One sec. Oh shit, it's snowing. One sec. It is fucking snowing here. Fantastic. The kids are gonna love that shit. Why is it going away? There's a couple reasons, and Andrew Novick, who has a podcast, if you look up Andrew Novick Warlock Pinchers, you'll find a bunch on the guy. He's a staple of like weird Colorado history. One of the things that has happened over time is, as commodities became more of a thing and things became sort of thrown out, people find less value in the visual of any given thing. For example, McDonald's recently did another set of their like commemorative cups. If you didn't know, it's because no one cares, because they literally make like 500 million of them when they print them now. But the ones from when I was like in the 80s or the 70s, they didn't make a ton because people didn't really, like, they were collectors things. People didn't really buy them. So there's a really weird sort of way that over time, people have become less attached to the material things, but also less keeping them. And also because there's more commonality and less uniqueness in any given physical thing. All of this is sort of leading to this collapse. Andrew's done a handful of podcasts on it. It's really interesting shit if you can find it. Not enough lead in the pipes. That's probably fair, also fair, actually. Let me see if I can find his podcast really quick.
I want to see what you think of the real estate thing, because it's a little bit. I actually understand what you said more in the sense of real estate, where it's not like these artists cannot survive in the Bay Area or downtown Los Angeles, but it's more about how these large chunks of rent will be the molar formation that actually squash any kind of other desired production. So they simply don't click with the things in their head when they see these found objects anymore. That sounds more like it, because there's all these very large chunks of expectation they need to always carry it in the back of their head, instead of these smaller chunks that keeps going in and out, and then people become numb to it.
Well,
Because
I had someone who had this argument from a different direction. It was a weird convo, but they were like, have you noticed that in the last decade, there hasn't been any gentrification? And that conversation went very much in this way, where it's like, hey, the thing that happens when you have, yes, hipster fucking white kids, whatever, when they start going through that process, when gentrification happens, cultures collide, there's weird pockets of things that happen at those sort of intersections. And it's where we get some of the most extraordinary art that we've had in the last 50, 60, 70 years is in those like little places. Basquiat comes to mind very specifically, but he's hardly alone. And that really odd intersection of these things we haven't had, because I know it's expensive as fuck everywhere. We're all kind of fucked as a thing. And so the ability for us to find, I mean, I'm going to end up going way too off road with this, but Francois Julien talks about how there's no such thing as cultural identity, because culture is ultimately about resources that we are able to exploit. And if we understand that that's the case, the ability for us to have a rich tapestry of resources has been absolutely killed and absolutely destroyed across the board. And it's one of those things that as we don't have the intersection of cultures, as we don't have the ability to play with these resources, as we don't have them because we don't have these rich tapestries anymore, like all of that puts us in a place of completely getting fucked. But I don't want to go too long, but yeah, this is you should check out Andrew's podcast for sure. I think you'd really like it. I linked it in Discord here. I'll link it on YouTube as well. Cause he's great. I'm trying to get him to come back. We had him like a evening with Andrew. It was really fun. He's a character and really wonderful. Warlock Pinchers were amazing. They did a concert that they had in the front like their merch table, and they had beekeeper suits that were like $50, and everyone laughed, ha ha ha. And then partway through the show, they released a bunch of flies into the audience out of boxes, and it caused like a stampede because everyone thought they were bees. That was the kind of shit he did. He was a unique person. Different world, man. Funny shit though. But I'm going to continue now. Because the reason I didn't use Bricoleur, and I probably should actually use Bricoleur here, but the reason I didn't is this next sentence. The satisfaction of the tinkerer when he connects something onto an electrical conduit, when he diverts a water conduit, would be poorly explained by a game of Papa Mammon or a pleasure of transgression. Now, I translated this directly. I probably shouldn't have. That's probably fair. It should be Papa Mama. It's not playing mommy daddy. The expression is like a really weird specific thing that they've got in France. And I had a handful of people yell at me not to translate that. So you're free to tell me I was wrong. That's fine. The underlying point here first though, I'm getting someone is still talking in my ear, I think. It's LJ.
Sorry.
You're good. Mute up. Their point here is the Oedipal argument overall, right? The tinkerer's satisfaction. I use tinkerer here because when we talk about someone who is building an electrical toy, or they've, whatever it is, they've built a waterway, or they're fucking around with a waterfall or model or anything. Tinkerer fits this, I think, significantly better than bricoleur, because it is touching into, I think, something that I would think a lot of people have the ability to sort of attach to. Using rich tapestries more than Gemini. Really? Did I say it too many times? It's a great phrase. The core idea that's happening here is that people who plug into these things, the thing that's plugging in that they're doing, when they make something that plugs into this, when they're diverting it, the enjoyment they get out of that can't be explained by the fact that it's like, as we'll come to learn, Melanie Klein's, you're plugging in, therefore it's penis entering vagina. Yeah. And it's like, it's not that. It's also not this like Lacanian explanation through transgression or diversion of law, whatever you might say. These things don't fit. And these are the two dominant frameworks as a thing. He's like, no, it doesn't fit. It doesn't work. It doesn't work as a thing. You can't. The Oedipal thing, the game of Papa Mama is not going to do it here. And it's a particular thing. It's not playing with mommy and daddy, which is what Hurley says. They're specifically referencing the Oedipal triangle with Papa Mama, and that's the thing they're saying. It's almost a technical term in their vocabulary that they use kind of a lot. So I had a handful of people yell at me, and you're free to yell at me too. That's fine. But this is not just pleasure of transgression, right? That's what they're saying. It doesn't work. Satisfaction of a tinkerer, or by pleasure of transgression. This is not Foucault. He's literally saying Foucault's wrong here, by the way. Like, that's Bataille Foucault tradition. It's not transgression. It's not any of that. That's not the jam that's happening here. The rule of always producing, of grafting producing onto the product, is the character of machines of desire or of primary production. Production of production. More or less restating the earlier part, because we're about to go into kind of wild shit. Desire machines are defined by the rule that production never terminates in a product, but always is itself re-entering production, right? Right? It says playing mommy daddy. Doesn't, same thing. They're particular with their terminology. They're referencing Oedipus. It's not pretending to be mommy daddy. It's not playing house. That's not what they're doing. It just doesn't make sense. Where was I? Grafting, producing on a product, rule of always producing. Okay. These machines are primary production, not secondary because of this. They are part of the originary productive process itself. Secondary production is the production of representation, the production of meaning, deeper meaning, and things like that. This is primary production. Primary production. That is the character of machines of desire, primary production. Again, using Marx's language, like primary accumulation, primary process for Freud. There's all these fun language that they're sort of pulling from when they talk about it. But they end with Lindner's painting, which, if you don't know the painting, one sec, let me link to it. I'm not going to show it here necessarily. Lindner's painting of a boy. You'll recognize it. It's a famous one. It's famous for AO too. I'll pop it on screen for a moment. This is Lindner's image of a boy. Okay. This is the painting they're talking about and the phrasing that they use. A painting by Richard Lindner. We have it as a sticker on the QC. That's right. It's called Boy with Machine. Shows an enormous and turgid child, having grafted, making function one of his little machines of desire onto a big technical social machine. For, we shall see, this is already true of the child. They are absolutely using language that's intended to have an underlying sexual connotation. That is absolutely intentional. The visual evidence in this painting for them that they see, and again, this is every kid, if you've ever been around children, the kid is building stuff at large. He isn't just making a toy only for himself. He's connecting to things at large. The child is not first in family and then later socially. The child's desiring machines are grafted onto the larger technical social machine. The child here is not subsuming or controlling or all-encompassing. The social machine is around him. He is plugged into it and he is touched into it. You can see it. He's holding a thing that is connected to machinery, connected machinery going out of it. That's a Lindner's thing. Is he did this thing, this fucking weird looking kid. And they will talk about this again, but it's the child is playing at large with things and the social thing at large. Well, they're not talking about that Lindner painting, Anton. How about this one? And also, he is connected at large. He's just closed off in a room, which I think would be a different model. Kind of reminds me of J.D. Vance. That's fair. See, now I'm going to want to use AI to turn this into J.D. Vance. God damn it. God damn it. Now I want to do that.
Okay, Brooks. I will you will hear now a discontent from some structuralist perspective.
All right.
As you have mentioned before, instead of questioning the validity of hysteria versus master's position or hysteria versus psychotic, maybe one of the explanation of bisexuality is the material condition and desire production that's carried by men in power instead of these transgression and thrill and guilt, whatever, from betraying the father, whether primordial, primate father, or name of the father. Do you think that's what they're saying here?
No.
I mean, I just have to chime in. No?
No.
Okay.
That would not explicitly here. We may be talking at some point down the road of all of the building that social pressures do and how the organization of desiring machines creates pain and creates the repression and the pain that is experienced by the body. And as such, representation is one of those things that will do this. And so when we talk about man, woman, bisexual, heterosexual, homosexual, all these things, the emergent version of them, again, not the large structure that exists that is I have to fit myself into, but instead the as we go emergent way that desiring production is constantly connecting and rebuilding and connecting and producing, that falls back to everything else. So we're maybe getting close, but I'd probably say no, but maybe. I don't know.
Okay. And the bisexual I'm talking about is more to the older definition of bisex identical instead of sex or orientation.
Yeah, I mean, that's when they talk, when they use the term transsexual here, for example, they're very much not meaning what we would use the term for today. They mean someone who is outside of human sexuality or between all of them, I guess you could say, depending on how you want to talk about it. So they play in a very different way when they're using. Again, terms changed in 70 years as it does.
Yeah, I just think that there might be something interesting here because there has been an older question of hysteric structure versus psychotic structure, and now there is a autism question in the Lacanian cycle about neurotic versus psychotic. But this one actually can synthesize both of those two bottomless questions or unanswered questions in structuralism. But I'll delay that question until later.
Fair enough. From YouTube, Caleb asks, desire is the same as libido, the same as life drive. No, I'm going to say underlying it, sort of, which is like the least satisfying answer I can give. Life drive comes with a lot of baggage, conceptually, representationally. When we talk about the life drive, oh, it's a drive towards life, but that's not really what we're talking about here. Desire doesn't have a goal, so it's more drive in general. It's the way that a lot of people misunderstand Nietzsche's will to power. It isn't like a will to being powerful. That would be the added to it. It's the will to power. Like it's to power. That's it. It's the connective synthesis and the way desire works is desire produces itself through the connections that make itself. So it's kind of this self-creating and ongoing process. Libido, for example, tends to be singular. You have a drive, a libidinal drive. That's also not what's happening here. Desire is multifaceted and all over the place and kind of everywhere. And everything is desiring production. Everything is this process. But there's not like you have a libido. That's the wrong direction to go. But these are all things that they're tearing with, and they will come to it. Chapter 2 literally will go into life, death, drives, libido, voluptus, all that fun stuff. I mean, shit, the next paragraph's where we first start with the body without organs. So hope you guys are strapped fucking in for that one. It'll be fun. It's going to be a lot real quick here. I'm trying to think if I want to change this to Tink. I'm going to do that. It's actually going to become Bricoleur. I'm going to just do that. And then I'll have an annotation about the entire thing. I think that's the only way I can do it. Because, yeah. Shit. Just frustrating. Because I think it works best in the next one, but then this is the same fucking thing I went through the first time, I feel like. I feel like I've been literally sitting here doing this fucking translation for too long. Get it changed? Yeah, I think I'll just change it. It's fair. Publishing a translation? I mean, I don't know if I'll be able to, but I will be releasing it. Is the idea, at least. So we'll just do Bricoleur. Poses a set of well-linked. And I think the satisfaction of the tinkerer when he connects something, I think that's not Bricoleur, that second one. Some way to get this set up in an interlinear app, that'd be awesome. That would be great. You're free to build one. I don't have enough time. Yeah, I'm going to just, I think that works. And then do a satisfaction of the tinkerer. We do annotation. Particular kind of a maker, one who is tinkering. I think that's fine. That's fine. I've got a whole bunch of annotations to go here. You too early for this? This is the art. All right. Any last questions before we move on? Because once I move on, I will probably answer anything that comes my way. But still, I'm just asking before I move on to the next giant fucking nightmare paragraph. All right. So, who here, someone posted earlier, I almost feel like I have to go back to it. Someone found I was a little overly sarcastic one day. And I think I was upset because someone linked me cute accelerationism. Let's see. Where did I put it? Yeah. Here. And so I wrote the most cute acceleration. If you haven't seen it, is like the worst thing in the history of the world. I hate accelerationism. I hate all this shit so fucking much. Here, I'll post it in Discord for you to see. Oh, thank you, Raiko. Oh my god, hi. So like the BWO is totally giving main character energy, but make it philosophical, ooh. It's basically when Deleuze and Guattari said, Bestie, what if we yeeted all the organized parts and hierarchies? I don't think I could be more sarcastic. I'm pretty proud of how that one turned out. That's really awful. I hate reading it. It makes me angry just to read it. Makes me angry to even read my own text. Jesus Christ. This is where we are. We're about to get into the BWO. This is the introduction here. The BWO is the body without organs, is an incredibly important central concept to Anti-Oedipus, but I would argue to the overall works of both Deleuze and Guattari, who later will actually go on to build the concept into something I think much stronger, and I think into a larger set of works that I think does a lot of amazing things. But I think I was hoping we could skip this section. Yeah. We can't, because the thing is, as we go through AO and we go through this paragraph, I'm just going to kind of give a little preview. They're going to begin by showing how, again, product producing, which we went through in the previous paragraph, product producing identity of the connective synthesis itself generates this third term. And this third term is this massive, undifferentiated object that halts the process of production momentarily. This is not going to be easy to get through. Genuinely, the language here is fucking difficult and dense. It's actually really fucking dense. This paragraph, do not expect, I will just say it, this is how I tend to say it, do not expect to come away going, oh yeah, this should, if you are reading this correctly, this should be confusing and introduce a lot of things that you're going to need them and feel like demanding them to explain. I am going to not explain that deep. But the dude who linked used to be an accelerationist. I don't know. I'm not an accelerationist. Nor was I. They're going to talk about the origin. We'll talk about a handful of things as we get going. But this paragraph, I think, as it stands, is going to be going through a lot of stuff and ultimately going to be defining the BWO by the end of it. So here we go. From producing a product producing identity, it is this identity that forms a third term in the linear series. Enormous, undifferentiated object. Everything stops for a moment, everything freezes, then everything will start again. In a certain sense, it would be better if nothing worked, nothing functioned. Not to be born, to exist, to exit the wheel of births, no mouth to suckle, no anus to shit. Will the machines be broken down enough, their parts detached enough to render themselves and us to nothing? It seems the energy fluxes are still too bound, the partial object still too organic, but a pure fluid in a free state and without cuts, sliding across a full body. The machines of desire make us an organism, but within this production, in its very production, the body suffers from being organized, not from not having another organization or no organization at all, an incomprehensible station and quite straight, in the middle of the process, as a third time. No mouth, no tongue, no teeth, no larynx, no esophagus, no stomach, no belly, no anus. The automata stop and let the unorganized mass they articulated rise. The full body without organs is the unproductive, the sterile, the ungenerated, the unconsumable. Antonin Artaud discovered it there where it was, without form and without figure. Death instinct, such is its name, and death is not without model. For desire also desires that, death, because the full body of death is its immobile motor, as it desires life, because the organs of life are the working machine. One will not ask how it works together. The question itself is the product of abstraction. The machines of desire work only broken down, in breaking down ceaselessly. Judge Schreber lived for a long time without a stomach, without intestines, almost without lungs, the esophagus torn, without bladder, ribs crushed. He had sometimes partially eaten his own larynx, and so on. The body without organs is the unproductive, and yet it is produced in its place and in its hour in the connective synthesis as the identity of producing and product. The schizophrenic table is the body without organs. The body without organs is not the witness to an originary nothingness, no more than the remainder of a lost totality. It is above all not a projection, nothing to do with the proper body or with the image of a body. It is the body without image, the unproductive. It exists there where it is produced at a third time of the binary linear series. It is perpetually reinjected into production. The catatonic body is produced in the bath water. The full body without organs is anti-production. But it is still a character of the connective or productive synthesis to couple production to anti-production, to an element of anti-production. We'll just say that there's going to be a lot of divergences in the translation, and I'm probably not going to mention Hurley at all. We open. Saltburn. We open from producing a product producing identity. It is this identity that forms a third term in linear series, enormous, undifferentiated object. All right. So far, we've been talking about desire and production. Desire and production is a linear binary series of connective syntheses, right? And then, right? Boop, 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 right? Linear binary series, right? But it produces a point where producing and product are the same thing, are identical. This happens. At this point, the third term appears. This is not another partial object. This is also not a flux. This is an enormous, undifferentiated object. This is the BWO. The phrasing they have of this is really interesting. The third term in the linear series. This is, if you haven't read Logic of Sense, series 4 and 5, to me, this is where they're pulling from. Also, my videos this week are touching into this. Two heterogeneous series for Deleuze. Things that are different in kind, not number. So, for example, in here, producing and product, things that are different in kind. They converge on this paradoxical element that belongs to neither but catalyzes both of them. So, for this, the concept of this undifferentiated object is this idea that Deleuze, reading sort of through Simondon, more or less, DNR stuff, is like a field of potentials right prior to individuation. The linear series of the and then, as we've been talking about through the book so far, is building to this. This is the Deleuze is taking a lot from Simondon here, like when I say a lot, it's really a lot. Deleuze here is kind of taking the ideas of coupling, of resonance, and of forced movement. And that third thing, the forced movement, this opens the circles of things. This third term, the BWO, everything that follows is the elaboration and the naming of this undifferentiated object. The undifferentiated is the thing making this. Okay? The undifferentiated. That's the phrasing to care about here. Because it's, again, everything's born of difference. The undifferentiated object produced as these things become identical. There you go. Identity. There you go. Which book by Simon Doan does he talk about this? Simon Doan is, I don't know specifically. They kind of blur. I'm not Mr. Simon Doan. We have a couple Simon Doan readings that go through this. But this is the pre-individual field. I'm reading it through Deleuze, so I may not even be getting it right, to be very fair. But this is like DNR chapters 4 and 5, which are not, again, my strong suit. Chapter 5 is, he spends a lot of time talking about this. This is him bringing all of that back together. It's not full body without organs, it's filled body without organs. Plain full is the correct translation, but it's not like full as actualized, it's full as in filled. Yeah, I didn't realize that until I had the right translation either. Because I assumed, English sucks for this. English sucks so fucking hard for this, it's not even funny. Like, the full body without organs can mean like, if you buy a video game and it doesn't come with all the characters, you're not getting the full package. The full body without organs, I was taking that way for literally a decade. For literally a fucking decade. By the way, Brooks, you have French. We have a ton of French speakers. We have 2 or 3 French speakers in the room right now. But we also have a handful who are not in the room right now and just like yelling at me offline and sending me messages, which is also fair. And also other people who I write and I drop notes to once in a while. So we have a lot of people helping. This is not like the product of me sitting down and doing this alone. Just to be very clear, so you're good. The full body without organs means the full body as in like stuffed. The stuffed body. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, Estelle was here. Estelle's probably still on YouTube. We have a couple, but we're not going over that right now. We'll get to that. There's so many things in the translation that are really, really frustrating. But, like, let's just, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just start with this beginning. I shouldn't. I don't want to spend time doing that. The ending here, the ending of this sentence, the enormous undifferentiated object. They say enormous undifferentiated object, not an enormous undifferentiated object. They're French has the ability to say the or an, like there's words that can identify a particular thing. The ending of this is actually really interesting to me. When they write enorme objet non différencié, there's no articles. It is a predicate. It's not a thing being pointed at. It is enormous undifferentiated object. It's not a countable thing. Literally, Hurley makes it a countable thing. How much cut does Patreon take from you? Not very much. That's a couple percent, I think. It's pretty good, generally speaking. Like I think it's like 8 or 9% now. Not sure. But appreciate it, Goddard. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Well, isn't someone very, very kind? Oh, it's Suresh. Of course it's Suresh. Suresh, you don't need to be spending money. Dude, spend money on your kitchen stuff so you can get your cooking stream going. So a totality of something versus filling the volume. Yeah, this is, we'll get there. We'll get there. This is when we talk about why people don't understand the BWO. I'll just talk about myself. Why I failed to understand The Body Without Organs for the longest time, I actually fully blame on this book. And when I say this book, I mean the Hurley translation of Anti-Oedipus, because the phrasing of things that doesn't carry over, that doesn't have the bend on it that it does in French, and the intention behind it that it does clearly in French, is very, very frustrating. Yeah, plein is abundance, plenty. So it should be we'll get there. But the thing that's happening here that we need to talk about is that last bit. They're not talking about an undifferentiated object is made. They're talking about it's the predicate. It is enormous undifferentiated object. The thing that it's not that every time you have one, it's the thing. Later on, they're going to be making a change, and Deleuze makes it very specific. Guattari, I don't know which one started. It doesn't matter. The plane of consistency becomes the way that they start sort of talking about this. The enormous undifferentiated object. It is that thing. It isn't a version of it made. You'll see what I mean as we get going, because again, they're talking about desiring production functionally. Again, this is a topological sort of looking down at it. The next sentence, everything stops for a moment. Everything freezes, then everything starts again. Hurley adds everything stops dead for a moment. Dead's not in the original French. What the fuck are you doing? Sorry, just to complain for a moment. Like, it's insane how much is added. The versus an, or just, there's no article at all. There's no article at all in the French, Collie. Exactly. It's not that. They don't even say the. Like, I'm adding the because we don't really have the phrasing that I think works to communicate this. But the French version of this is just straight up, terme dans ce série linéaire, énorme objet non différencié. Like, it's straight up, it just is enormous, undifferentiated object. Enormous object without difference. A differentiation. It's really weird. And it's completely, again, there's a lot of things that are going to be really important as the rest of the book goes, you'll see. But specifically here, everything stops for a moment, everything freezes, then everything starts again. The third term showing up here, right? Because we're talking about the emergent process of production from desire up, and it's partial objects connecting and then, right? The thing produced carries forward the stuff in its own locality with it. And then everything stops. And we have a third term. We've only had two terms. The third term shows up. Right? The third term is a momentary arrest of the productive process. This is the stasis of anti-production. Everything like stops, I would almost say, like, I wouldn't say stops. It is just a halt. There's a halt for a moment of a thing. Everything congeals. But this is temporary. Everything will start again. The process will recommence. The BWO is not a final state. It is a moment in the productive cycle. The way that capital is a moment in production. It doesn't stop. It halts everything. It's a moment of actualization that halts everything. It works kind of like that. It's a part in the process, but it doesn't stop everything forever. It's not the end state. It's not even the middle state. It's just a third term that has been built, and it is an arrest of the productive process. There's this rhythm that we're going to start seeing to the process as we get going. They'll be making comments on this throughout. It's the thing to be sort of feeling out as we go, right? But here specifically, this is arrest in the process. It is not the termination of the process. Okay? They say, in a certain sense, it would be better if nothing worked and nothing function. Sorry, not the and. I added the and. In a certain sense, it would be better if nothing worked, nothing functioned. The BWO, they're kind of speaking for the BWO here. Like, there's a longing for absolute non-production, the cessation of all of this machinery that's around. You're going to be hearing about this as we go. This may be a little death drivey as I'm talking about it, and I am. There's an aspiration to zero intensity that's here. This third term, again, the enormous undifferentiated object. It's undifferentiated, the thing that's happening here. But again, only in a certain sense. And it is not from a certain point of view, Hurley. That's not the words. It's in a certain sense of it, a certain manner, only in certain manière, the sense of it, the certain manner of it, that this works this way. The sequence of increasing negation that we're going to be hitting here is what culminates in the BWO. Wait, what are the first two terms? Desiring machines and wait. One sec. I want to say it's machines and desire, but I'm not positive. No, I don't think I'd say that. I think we actually just went over them, and we opened it here. Producing and product, I would probably say. These are the binary linear series is producing product, the two poles of the connective syntheses, right? So we have producing, which is I know we don't really have a definition, but it's like, it's the active process of the connective synthesis. Producing is the thing the synthesis is doing. The coupling of machines. Machines produce flux, another machine cuts it. Extraction is made. This is like operational, right? As a thing. Product is the thing that is extracted. It is the thing produced by the cut of the thing. So mouth-breast coupling yields nourishment satisfaction. This is the product of the connective operation. But these things come together, the producing and the product. And when they reach a moment of sort of self-identity, because that's what they've been talking about, the two terms aren't really separable. The Michaud's table, right? Strauss's bricolage. Production and producing aren't things we can really pull apart. They're different moments in a process, but they're not able to be extracted. Producing is always grafted onto product, and product carries its here-ness, its here into the new production. So identity collapses here in this third term because it is enormous undifferentiated object, the BWO. So the series and the third term is kind of producing product and then producing product identity. The identity of the producing product, which is enormous undifferentiated object, as a thing. Yeah. Yeah, Collie, I think that's what it is. And I actually think I just described what producing is too, and what production is. Yeah, Deleuze does this. Well, he actually is fairly clear about it. But he doesn't, it's the phrasing that he has, he will say that there's like, this is the first term, but he says it in like weird ways. A lot of it does come from, again, the English translation, which sort of, again, doesn't even say these things. Like, it's very weird language that Hurley ends up choosing for most of this that I find very trying, I would probably say. I would say it's very trying. But yeah, you can trace it back when you reread. But yeah, it'd be nice if he was, hey, here's the first thing. It'd be nice if he just was like, hey, here. And actually that would be, let me make a note of, that's what I need to fucking do. So that's what That's what my annotations are intended to be. Wow. Did my sticky notes with my fucking API keys just go on screen? Good, it didn't. That was nice. Goddamn Windows. Annotate each term and mark out so the third term is clear from first two. All right, that's fair. I need to make a note to do that. I'm not going to do it right now because my brain's not going to be able to stop and slow down for that. But yeah, it's fair. BWO's field does not stop the flow of difference. It suspends organization or codification, but the movement of difference itself, the eternal return of the different, continues through it. Yes. Yes. We're not there yet because right now we're just talking about the generation of the third term and the making of it. But yeah, I mean, Josh, I know you know this shit. But they're going to be talking about from the BWO's position. We're about to see like these negation moments, and I just want to talk through them because they're actually really interesting. Not to be born, to exit the wheel of births, no mouth to suckle, no anus to shit. This is organ refusal. No mouth, no anus, blah, blah, blah. The organs of the synthesis we've talked about and that they laid up so far. They've explicitly talked about birth, mouth and suckling, shitting out your ass, all that stuff, right? They're rejecting these things now. The wheel of births is the cycle of continually being reborn, cycle of birth, that kind of shit, birth, suffering, death, all that shit. They're kind of mapping the BWO into this like very particular negation of the body, but they're not endorsing it again as final position. That's not what they're setting up here. They're playing with these things, right? Le Roue de Naissance is very Nietzschean to talk about sort of this samsara and this thing. Beckett does this as well, and Deleuze comments on it elsewhere. So he's playing with these things. But specifically, will the machines be broken down enough, their parts detached enough to render themselves and us to nothing? Can desiring machines be sufficiently dismantled? Can their parts be sufficiently detached? Can they be broken down enough to achieve a zero state that is the BWO? Right? Can they do that? No. The answer is no, by the way. It's just to move, like, just that's it. They answer it immediately. The energy fluxes are still too bound. The partial object's still too organic, which is fucking like it's real quick. It's a real quick turn. The total dissolution into nothing is impossible. That doesn't work. This is what Josh was posting. It's not stopping the flow of difference. That's not the setup here, right? That's not the thing that they're driving at. Things are still too organic. They're still too, the word is liés, tied and attached, bound. The energy flux is still too tied into each other. The partial object's too organic. It's too organized into functional couplings. So the BWO can't be achieved as like a pure zero or pure nothing. Production has to continue to operate at some level. This is why the BWO is produced rather than this originary void. There's a lot of people that are commenting here, but this is kind of like Klosowski's commentary, where he's like, is there a negation? Well, you just vocalized there is one, so therefore it's a positive act to identify it. So generation is still happening, even if you think there's a nothing there. You have to generate the nothing. The nothing is still something. There's still too much organic. There's still too much of this stuff happening across the board. The idea of total non-production, the elimination of production, just won't fucking work. So instead of nothing, when something is self-identical, right? Production, product become merged. Instead of nothing, the emergence is the BWO, the enormous undifferentiated, not the enormous undifferentiated object. It's not nothing. The unproductive as produced is what is occurring. Yes, that I'm going to say it like that again. The unproductive that is produced as produced is what's happening. That's what the BWO is. It's not nothing. It's the unproductive as produced. Brooks, learn French fast. Fully support if you do this. Sunday, you're a dick. I've spent the last 4 years trying to learn it. And I'm not going to. Not in conversational tone. It's one of those things, and I mentioned it a few times. One of my favorite, the thing that threw me down this is Terrence Blake, who put it just incredibly well. He moved when he was, I think, early 20s, late teens, from Australia to France to study under Deleuze. He's a bit older than I am. Not much, according to you kids, but still. And he said, within a month or two, he was like, I was reading French. It was great, but I couldn't order a baguette to save my life. And I can tell you, I am presuming that that's where I am. I will always be there. I don't have enough ability to fully immerse in language. But once you read, words become very recognizable. Structures become recognizable. And again, with help, because again, I'm not like doing this. I'm a vehicle for this. That's what makes it fun. But we'll continue. Learning from AO is not literal French. You have to know literal French natively. No, I don't. The fuck? I don't have to learn. I don't have to do shit but pay taxes and die. I don't even have to do the first one. But to continue. But a pure fluid in the free state without cuts sliding across a full body. So now we're going to get into the idea of full. This sentence alone is really frustrating in Hurley. Hurley's version is, what would be required is a pure fluid in a free state, flowing without interruption, streaming over the surface of a full body. So there's a lot of problems here. It's actually a fragmentary sentence in a very particular type of writing that they do. There are scholars in Nietzsche who learned Greek and German to read him. Good for them. That's great. Don't care. It's intentionally incomplete as they're talking about it. And they have very particular phrasing. Flowing versus sliding. He doesn't utilize or talk about cuts. Instead, he talks about interruptions. It's wild. But then specifically, let's talk about the phrasing there. It ends with, en train de glisser sur un corps plein. Plein is not complete. Full can mean complete. I have the full set of things. I have, Sunday is full of himself, for example. These phrasings don't mean stuffed. That's not how that works. It means they're total to themselves across the board, right? But that's not what this means at all. Plain is not just, it's just not that. It means stuffed full, a body filled, a body of plenty, a full body. So, who is this typing from Sunday's channel? Which column I need? First off, please don't. So, plain, as we were talking about that, plain is plenty. One of the challenges when people talk about the body without organs, you're going to hear this throughout the rest of the book. They're going to use a lot of phrasing in a lot of very particular ways, where it's the full body without organs, the capitalist full body, all of these things. But English doesn't differentiate very well. And when these words are weird in English, we take them as meaning complete. I have literally forever, and I'm not alone. I know there are other people here in a lot of ways. Like as a thing. Sorry, my brain has trouble divesting from certain things when they get mentioned. It's tough. Let's talk about a couple things here. First off is cut versus interrupt. Hurley uses interrupt. I cannot go with this. Interrupt is almost a domestication that is losing precision in what is mathematic, scientific, intentional things. This is actually happening sort of through all of this. Corpse plane or full body, this is the first time this is really used in the entire book. It'll become the full body without organs. But Hurley even goes out of his way to state here the surface of full body. There's no word there. That's not in French. It's not there. But to call it the surface of the full body instead of the full body without organs, the distinction matters because the BWO doesn't have a surface depth distinction. It is undifferentiated. It is enormous undifferentiated object. Right? Right? Are you following? Like, it doesn't have that. So just fucking having someone say, oh, the surface of, why would you add that? Sliding across a full body is the point. It's the process of sliding. There's a progressive aspect to it that's there. It's played differently. The positive image of the BWO here would be if the dissolution were complete. If it would be is emphasis for me there, would be that it would be this pure fluid. It would be free without cuts, without the operations of the connective synthesis that segment flux into partial objects, that break things up, that push that, right? Sliding across a full body. The smooth, uncut elements on which the undifferentiated fluid moves, if you want to call it the surface, great. I wouldn't go that far, but this is the opposite of organ-machine couplings that the connective synthesis pushes forward. And this is really particularly, they're pulling from, there's a very tiny thread. This is Guattari, whose fucking reading of psychoanalysis is just way beyond anything I'm capable of. So forgive me, he's ridiculous. Specifically in Freud talks about the way that there's freely mobile and bound energies. These are kind of the ways he talks about these things, right? There's that which is bound, the energies that are caught up, unable to be used, but still exist, or the freely mobile, that which can connect and can do things. They're playing from this and kind of pulling all the way sort of from there. They're playing from that through Artaud. This is individuation through Simondon as well. It's wild. It's, if Simondon were saying this, he'd be like, oh, well, look, with the individual, there is a pre-individual that is like this metastable field of potential that precedes specific individuation. This is what we're talking about. But it's moving it into a place of almost pure state. The vision of the BWO in this way is not done. We're not done in the process, but this point makes this thing, right? He writes worse than Klosowski. Klosowski writes like a master. So it's definitely not the right thing. Guattari's writing is either incredibly brilliant and fluid and wonderful, or stilted and nightmarish. There's a reason that the writing of Anti-Oedipus and 1,000 Plateaus was done by Guattari writing shit on note cards and giving them, like, Nabokov style. Is it Nabokov? Who did that? Yeah, it was Nabokov, who would give his wife note cards, and his wife would, like, organize the stories. Guattari handing Deleuze, like, hey, here's some ideas. And Deleuze, like, wrote the entire actual book. It's very, very tough. It's a lot. Surface of water. This is not more abstract. This is meant to be less abstract. This is the problem, colleague. Like, this is meant to be less abstract. So when we start having these conversations, think of it literal. They're being literal of how these things operate. And again, we're pre-individual, all of this. This is like meant to be the opposite of abstraction. That's why the Hurley translation, which is just like crazy abstractions everywhere as they're talking, and it's not ways you can, sliding across the surface of the body without organs is undifferentiated. How the fuck does it have a surface? What the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't work as a thing. They also don't use the word surface. These kinds of things. We'll get there. The machines of desire make us an organism, but within this production, in its very production, the body suffers from being organized, from not having another organization or no organization at all. So remember how I said, oh, this part, we're not done, right? So there's the BWO, this undifferentiated thing, right? This undifferentiated thing shows up. And we have this really weird, it could be the end. Oh, but production's still happening. Like, it's not like it stops at all. There's no negative or negation happening here. Desire machines producing an organism is weird. They organize the body into functional wholes, right? So we read them earlier. The mouth for this, the anus for this flux for this cut, etc. The body suffers from organization like this. Now, this is not suffering due to some external agent like a machine crushing you or something pushing that. The reason body suffers is internal to production itself. Bodies want different organization or none at all. And here they've kind of laid out the three types of organization: the current, the other, or none. And there's no hierarchy to them. They don't lay them out as one better than another, one more important, but that the suffering is not this. I just don't want this. This suffering is the organization. Ask a postmodern French theorist, write Crowley challenge. I actually think most of their writing in French is actually incredibly clear. It's just a matter of taking it as it comes. The same way that it would be like saying, well, look at this paper on quantum physics of the lower level. They use all these weird words. It's like, yeah, because, it's not first year fucking physics. And even then they use weird words. Power doesn't mean power is the first thing. Like, you learn, no, these things don't mean what you think. There's no difference here. There's no difference here. This is just another set of jargon. The foundational statement for the entire BWO concept is here. The distinction between organism, which is an organized body, an organism, and the words mean things here, organized body, and bodies, which is unorganized matter, is central to all of this. The body suffers from organization. That's it. Yeah. They're no longer describing like what the BWO would be. Like, they don't even like the idea of doing that. They're kind of they make a handful of jokes up front, like as they're doing this weird idealism and they're making the comments. But what it is it's suffering. It's suffering of the body under organization. That produces the BWO as reaction. Has Peterson ever mentioned Deleuze? I'm sure he has. He's a wonderful hack, and I wish him nothing but the worst. an incomprehensible station and quite straight in the middle of the process as a third time. No mouth, no tongue, they're quoting Artaud. No larynx, no esophagus, no belly, no anus. This is straight up Artaud, by the way. Like, and Artaud is like next to impossible. He's playing with neologisms that we don't even have in To Have Done with Judgment of God, which is what this is from. We have a reading of it a few years ago that the recording is still on YouTube. Jack in our server did it. And it's incredible to sort of understand where this terminology comes from. But the phrasing they have and the particularities around this is basically bringing Artaud, this absolutely schizophrenic, and I mean that in the traditional, like, absolutely broken person in and out of asylums. Writing is so wild and it's incredible. But this thing he's talking about, the incomprehensible station and quite straight, this is the BWO interrupting the productive process, right? The halt, the standing still, that is incomprehensible from the standpoint of production. It's production does production. Production is doing production, the two terms. This third thing is like, what the fuck? That it is a systematic negation of every organ, of the opening, of every site that the connective synthesis is trying to connect to. This is the BWO's like manifesto, his refusal of organic function. Yes.
So to kind of harp on the literalism of this,
I should not have said his. I'm sorry about that. I'm just getting into the poetry of this.
No. That's okay. I mean, just the literalism in general that I'm a little caught on, especially after this quote. Like, an organism in this sense meaning an organized body, but like in biology, an organism is, it's like the division between the, encasing of the organs and like the rest of the world or whatever. So is the body without organs is literally meant to be as in a body that has no mouth, no tongue, no teeth, no anus, all the stuff.
It has no organized stuff. It may still have all of like the literal things you're talking about, but like it's not organized. It's unorganized matter when it's just the body. Think of how an organism at large, like I think this is a decent description of it because we're talking about emergent. How does a baby understand its hand? And I'm very specifically, how does it know that it's its hand? And how does it define its hand? Because that's not a thing that we're born with. We aren't born with any of this. What happens is we are basically a big pile of stimuli matter shit. Our body does stuff, but it's not like it's doing things. Like we shit, but babies shit just wherever all the time. They're just kind of stuff's happening and the next thing happens and all this. But that's happening on top of all of the stimulus in and all the stimulus out. As that's happening, and as, stimulus response creates muscle stimulation here, or satisfaction here, or fear here, or brightness here, or whatever, all these things that slowly build up, and all these connections that slowly build up until there is an organism. And all until then, it's not like it didn't shit before, but it's unorganized matter. It's not a thing. It's a thing to the parents. The parents love the little fucker and the whatever, but not to it. The world isn't organized. It's not organized. It doesn't understand that it's shit. It doesn't understand what shit is. It doesn't know that shit is a thing. It doesn't understand piss. It doesn't understand body parts. The kids fucking suck on their hands and then stuff their foot in their mouth because their mouth is the thing that is the most sensitive. It lets them understand where the edges of things are. All of this are stimulus moments that are creating and going back and forth in this process. The organism is the organized body that is born at some point in this. And the body is just all of the matter without organization. So again, we would say, and I would look and I'd go, oh, well, look, it's got a belly, it's got a stomach, but a baby wouldn't say that. And that's kind of the thing. That's what they're taking from Artaud in this sentence. The middle of the process, third time, there's no mouth, no tongue, no teeth, no larynx, no esophagus, no stomach, no belly, no anus. The setup that's happening here is that shift from matter, like the stuff of desiring machines, to suddenly there's an organism. how do we make the shift? I mentioned, and I usually link to, and I'll grab it. Daniel Smith has just my favorite paper on the body without organs. Is it this one? One sec. Let me make sure I have so many fucking stupid papers. I want to make sure I get the right one. It's fairly recent too. Come on, PDF, load up. Yes, this would be it. One of my favorites, just linking to it right now, uploading it into the QC. Dan Smith goes through kind of where they're coming through with this, because there is a long-standing issue when it comes to like how we talk about stuff. Are things mechanistic connections of material? Like a crude materialism or physicalism would talk about all the molecules I am and all the physical properties those molecules have that come together that make me. But that's not satisfying, because I feel like a total whole thing, and you see me as one, and I talk to you, and I mean, I don't know your real name, but I call you what you are, you're Collie. So you are a total, like, how does that happen where we move from undifferentiated to this? From matter to singular organism and back, because the other side is that there is a true self, like the Hegel or fucking any, name an H, all the H's basically. I shouldn't say that because human Husserl, but still, the Nazi ones especially, they really love this idea of there being a true self that is the organism and all of that. But that also doesn't really help, because there is all of these processes at base that are emergently creating all this. And so Smith's argument is that what they're doing is, when they build the BWO, they're actually finding a way to bring all of it together. And that we have the body, which is the unorganized, disorganized matter that has no purpose. Things just sort of are connecting and doing. And then we have the organism, which is the human male Brooks dad, whatever, like that I call myself. And this is the centrality of what the BWO does. It sits between these.
Yeah. So could I chime in a little bit? Because I think I'm actually not really sympathetic to deleuze on this point.
Sure.
Which is, so Heidegger's argument for authenticity, which I think is what, are you referring to, like that kind of notion of like authenticity? Because I think Heidegger's argument is that you have to have a unified subjectivity. I mean, I don't think he would like the term subjectivity, because he didn't like a lot of terms in the Western philosophical tradition, but a sort of unified sense of being, because Dasein projects goals and stuff like that into, again, not goals, again, like these are very not Heideggerian ways of thinking about it, but like I'm trying to explain this to a probably not Heideggerian audience. But like Dasein projects these things, and this is what gives rise to a unified sense of self, is my understanding of Heidegger's position on subjectivity, which would seem to conflict with Deleuze's accounting of subjectivity, if what you're describing is accurate, unless I'm misinterpreting something.
No, and I probably shouldn't have brought up Heidi, because it's not really like the bullseye here of what they're like aiming at specifically. It's one of the ones that I think I go to because a lot of people have a very more simplified version of that. So to be fair, it's more complex. We had a Heidegger reading of Being in Time in the QC that was really wild, actually, because it was really fun to sort of watch where their ideas do come together. The way that they're sort of playing with it, and again, as Raiko says, the paper I put in is worth reading, because it is fundamentally, and they're not alone, before and after this paper, before and after, which for me happens to be around the time I was learning French and reading this, fundamentally changed my understanding wholly of their project, like in a really fucked up, angry with myself way afterwards, like fundamentally changed everything. And so I just to read for a moment from the paper as a thing, just because I think it'll help here. The 2 volumes of Capitalism and Schizophrenia, Deleuze and Guattari propose new concepts of machine and organism. The problem of the relationship between machines and organism has a long philosophical history. My aim in this essay is to treat this part of their work as a contribution to this debate. D&G's intervention reorganizes the cluster of concepts typically associated with each term, bringing certain features usually thought to be exclusively organic into their conception of machine, and bringing certain features usually thought to be machine-like into their conception of organism. Their reworking of these concepts leads them to a very different understanding of their relation. Their position is neither a classical mechanism nor a classical vitalism, although it has affinities with both. With the vitalist, for example, they share a distrust of mechanism's understanding of reality and as predictable and measurable. With the mechanist, they share a distrust of vitalism's idea of a special kind of matter particular to the organic. If classic vitalism contrasted the good, creative, spontaneous organism to the bad, inert, lifeless machine, D&G emphasized, on the contrary, the ability of the machine to create something new, also the normalizing and constraining aspects of the organism. Where some vitalist or neo-vitalist philosophers reverse the traditional order of precedence, reinscribing life as a dominant term against the machine, D&G go a step further, advancing their own concept of the BWO as a new way of understanding the relation between the two. It's a really good fucking essay, by the way. So, fair call, Alex. I should have been more careful with my wording. Fair. Did I even come close to even talking about what you were talking about?
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. I'm just saying that I think I'm more sympathetic to a Heideggerian position on authenticity than, because it seems the way you're describing Deleuze, he would reject the concept of authenticity to begin with.
Most certainly.
Okay. And I'm saying my personal position would be more Heideggerian because I believe our subjectivity is projected from networks of relations of our being in the world, and we have in our and Dasein projects goals that are distinct from other beings in the world, and authenticity is when Dasein rises above the Das Man, or doesn't, or predisposes himself to not following the crowd. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, of course, but
yeah, no.
Yeah.
The distinction is significant, even though it sounds minor as you put it. I kind of like how it sounds like this really wonky, really tiny corner of things, but it's a very pronounced distinction. There's a handful of really good books. I think there's a couple of people who've done work to actually unify the two through critiques. Because there isn't like a wild version where like Deleuze is like miles and miles away. This isn't like Hegel versus Deleuze or something. Like as Josh is saying, the notion of the virtual isn't wildly far from authenticity. It's not super far, but there's a handful of things that make it fundamentally different. And that's the part that I think is really fun. So, I will tag you later today. If I don't, please do annoy me, like ping me. I have a handful of PDFs I will search out and find specifically on this because it's fun. It's fun reading. Like I used to dismiss Heidegger as a Nazi, and then we had this reading, and I realized I'm an asshole. And it's been really fun to sort of watch because again, it's different enough. There are definitely places they're not compatible, but there's actually a lot of really interesting ways you can sort of cross over their ideas and have them play with each other. It's fun.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I just can't promise that I'll be Deleuze pilled, but
I'm not. Yeah. I don't care. I don't care. That's fine. We do not reject non-Deleuzians here. We do Marxist-Leninists. I think we may reject, but there's only a handful of those. To continue, that was kind of a joke, not really. One of the things here.
Well, sorry.
No,
before
please.
I go on, can I just go back to this like biological, machinic?
Yes.
I don't know, like spectrum or whatever that they're trying to bring together. Because like I feel that in the study of biology, you have this hierarchy of organization. It starts with the nucleus or what have you, and the cell, and then the tissue and the organ and all these things. So, I mean, the idea is whether or not you have this, whether or not you understand the concept of cells in your body, like you have cells in your body, right? I mean, is this just like a framework of conceiving the body?
Think of it how you come to call something a cell. There is a coextensiveness in the process of the production of the whole that, again, not to just yank Simondon out of everything. Simondon was done deeply dirty. Simondon and Klosowski both in this book were done deeply dirty by the authors. Simondon maybe more. the idea of coextension and what we don't understand that we're doing when we do this sort of breaking up, when we talk about the cell, 5 cells kind of need each other to exist, hundreds of cells. I don't have a cell in my foot that exists sort of in a vacuum. These things exist in this larger setup. What I've done by saying the cell, I've isolated and measured out particular things that enable me to break it down. Now, this is useful. Deleuze would not say this is not good. The opposite. What his philosophy goes in deeply into how all of this is really, really important, but it's a process you need to kind of know you're doing, that you're pulling these things out. I was on a stream last night where I was talking about one of the things they're having to really drive into the head of doctors more. I need to pull up the guy who was talking about it. He's a teacher at like one of these major med schools. He said, it's really weird. The med students today, like you get all of your numbers, like your cholesterol, your sugar number, hormone. He's like, and what somehow has happened is that all of these med students believe the number's the thing to go for, instead of understanding that the numbers are like indices of underlying sort of things. And that when something changes, it's not about, hey, your number got really high, let's get it low again. It's like, hey, your number got high, I need to look at why. And so that small change is what we're talking about here. The way of talking about a cell doesn't really exist except as these abstract categories. So as we're doing that, and as we're individuating, and as we're setting them up into these individual things, the stuff that it is still the stuff that it is. And there's stuff that we're not even counting in there. There's processes we don't understand. There's connections and cross connections that we're not including. And there's external things, again, the coextensivity of it. So when we're talking about like all things that exist, the body that exists, the body is just the viscera, and it's doing stuff. It's alive. It can be alive or dead. That's not really the point. But like the next thing is all about understanding that we're kind of adding an organization to it. And that organization we add, like when we say cell, there's a wall, there's a nucleus, there's this, like you were describing. Right. That's the organized thing. So it's these things come together, and they're not fighting that. And they're not saying there's no such thing as a cell, because that would be stupid. But they're like, we need to understand when we say cell, what we're doing. And also when we say ourselves as well.
Right. Like these are just models. I mean, like there's the whole critique of how like medicine is studied, and you have the like veins in blue and arteries in red, or however they do it, opposite, whatever. And it's like the body doesn't actually look like that when you cut it open. Like the surgeon students are, baffled or what have you, if they've only read the text. So I understand that like these things exist as models, and then that's not like an accurate image of reality, so to speak. But then is this kind of creating a new model where because we know the mouth is different than the anus, right? Like those are different.
Is it?
Organs. So they're connected. I don't know. I mean,
it is, to your point, we're connected. There's someone made a joke that's in 2D, we actually would be split in half, because we actually have a hole that goes all the way through our entire body, but we don't think of it like that. And in 2D, we would like be just cut in half by this, hole that it's going through everything. The way that we create and talk about this, the way that we organize, the way that we talk about it, the anus does something different to us than the mouth. It's part of the same process on a time scale. How fast of a time scale do you need for food going in, poop coming out to be basically the same process? That would be my question. And the answer is actually pretty fast time scale. Suddenly these things seem like they're the same thing, and they start becoming related, and the organization takes over. And we'll get to that. They're actually going to sort of talk about that a little bit, but they have a phrase in here. The phrasing, I'm just going to skip ahead. We'll get to it again. The body without organs is the unproductive, and yet it is produced in its place and in its hour in the connective syntheses. It's in its time and its hour as the identity of producing and product. The schizophrenic table is a body without organs. The schizophrenic table we just went over, which is a table covered in shit that doesn't seem like it's useful anymore, right? Because you can't put more on there. When the table is a thing now, it's no longer part of a process. It's a thing. The identity of producing and product come together. The undifferentiated surface, as they've called it in the past, or the plane of consistent, whatever. But this is the body without organs appears. it's that thing that shows up. Someone's talking. Who would that be?
Oh, sorry. I accidentally unmuted myself. Can I chime in here from a biological perspective?
Sure.
You said that humans will be two different planes if it's flattened. I think I understand what you mean, but I do argue a little bit against it here because the hole is completely filled with liquid and the solids that doesn't ever have this through quality to it. But there is this thing called protostome and deuterostomes where the first one means mouth first, and the second one is called second mouth thing.
I understand that we can create reasons that there's a reason that we talk about our foot instead of the cell in our foot or the cells of our foot or the bottom of our foot or our toenail. That the way we differentiate, the way an identity becomes a thing is kind of the point, that we get to the point where the identity of producing and product, because producing and product become undifferentiated. And in that moment,
how's it going? Windy.
Hello? Hello?
Seems like someone else might accidentally unmute it. I just wanted to chime in that in the those like initial division of the fertilized eggs, these differentiation at the very early stage, and how these like cleaving, the cells are cleaving against each other, and then how they differentiate, and then how they spin against each other. That's literally how these mouth first animals differentiate from the second mouth animals, where they have a specialized area for anus, where another one
but
is
again,
kind of
we say this, and again, the organization is the point here. The suffering of the organization is the point here that happens. Look, I'm going to continue this because at this point, I need to finish this within 3 hours. I don't want to have 2 paragraphs take more than 3 hours, ideally. The automata stop and let the unorganized mass they articulated rise. This is the point of that. As we're going through this, the reason they're using the language, and I'm stepping outside of that when we have the conversations, when I'm answering things, their very particular language is meant to be excessively hyper literal. Connecting, connection, we have product and production, producing product, identity. These things come together. When this happens, there's this moment where the automata stop and let the unorganized mass they articulated rise. The automata are desiring machines. These things work mechanically. They connect, they cut. These are not like thinking, oh, I'm having a good time. Oh, what's happening? That's not any of this shit, right? They just stop. And when they stop, right, the station incomprehensible, the unorganized mass, which is the body without organs, the enormous undifferentiated object that they had been articulating. The desiring machines had been articulating. They had been organizing into functional connections, not thinking about it, not trying to become a mouth. That's not what they were doing. They weren't becoming you. That's not what they're doing. This rises to this thing. The BWO was there. It was underneath organization, but it's apparent when production halts, when identity comes forward. The BWO emerges as what was always present beneath organization. It isn't a creation. It's a letting rise almost. The phrasing, the full body without organs, is the unproductive, the sterile, the ungenerated, the unconsumable. And I'll be very particular about the use of consumable. It's the same thing we had before. I just hate this translation so much. The BWO is something that produces nothing. Nothing grows from it. It is sterile. Just know the Patreon link says, what is wrong with the Patreon link? Oh, did I fuck up the Patreon link? Oh, whatever. It's fine. The BWO produces nothing, grows nothing. It's not fertile ground. It's sterile. It is not the product of another. It's ungenerated. Okay. And it is unconsumable. This is particular usage. There's two M's here, and we can have this conversation again, but this is about not being used up or consummated, completed, finalized. Okay. This is not consumed as in like eaten up. That's not it. Okay. To use up, but also to complete and finish. It is le inconsumable. It's the unconsumable, that which can't be used up as a thing. These things are what set it up. These four negations are the four modes of collective syntheses. We just went through them, right? It produces nothing. Well, production is the first. It doesn't reproduce. Reproduction is the second. It doesn't generate anything. Generation is the third. And consumption. The BWO negates every part of production. All of the four modes they went over so far. Antonato discovered it. There it was, without form, without figure. Death instinct. Such is its name, and death is not without a model. I'm not going to go over Otto again. We have a reading. I suggest reading the play. It's pretty great, to be perfectly frank. Is it immaterial idealistic? Nope. We are still material. It's not that it's immaterial. That's not where we're at yet. We'll get there. Don't worry. We'll get there. We got half a paragraph left in the next 3 hours. They're identifying the BWO with the death instinct. Death instinct, such as its name, death not without model. But they say death not without model. The phrasing here is really interesting. I think it's interesting. Death is not formless annihilation, as some may have misunderstood. That's not what they're saying. Death is not without model. It has a model. Death has a positive figure. This is going to be a thing, and I'm not going to get into it right now, but this is a big thing where they take on the death drive later on. The production of the BWO is the immobile motor that we're talking about here, though. There's a radical reinterpretation, not for now. There's an entire chapter 2 section about this that I'm super not about. Maybe. We'll see. All right. So for those who don't know, Freud in Beyond the Pleasure Principle introduces this idea of the death drive. There's a compulsion that organic things have to return to the inorganic. It's not death as like, I want to die, but sort of a return to heat death, like as a thing. You want to return to the inorganic. D&G refuse this on like many, many, many levels. But the short version for them is that the death drive is not actually about death. The death drive is about the production of the BWO. That's what we're seeing. This is the death drive as a thing. The death instinct is actually the production of the BWO, the unproductive thing within production itself. It's a completely different way of taking it entirely. Death is, as I said, not formless annihilation. So it's a big shift. You always heard the death drive is self-harm. A lot of people don't read books. The death drive is for some, but I disagree with readings, but like I get it. The desire towards oblivion, the drive towards oblivion. It's not really the drive towards hurting yourself or the enjoyment of pain. It's not, Hellraiser, pinhead shit. That's a little bit of a different thing. It's actually life drive, to be perfectly frank. But this is along all of that. Like that's the thing to sort of push.
Brooks, can I
please
ask you about this? Because you linked to Daniel Smith paper earlier. And I don't know how you feel about referencing 1,000 plateaus during this reading.
I
Because
usually try not to, but go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't asking about the 1,000 plateaus, though. I was asking about the Anti-Oedipus papers.
Yeah?
Because they have a very interesting definition of the body without organs in that book that also mentions the death drive.
Right.
I can link it, but I can read
Please,
it here.
please do.
Yeah.
I'll take a look.
The body without organs, and it says, Gilles Deleuze borrowed this idea from Antonin Artaud to describe the degree zero of intensity. The idea of the body without organs, unlike that of the death drive, does not implicate thermodynamic reference.
Right.
And I'm not really sure what that means.
Well, like I said, a lot of people interpret death drive as being a return to oblivion. The entropy as a thing is where we sort of have the heat death of the universe, right? Where there's just no more moving particles anymore. Nothing moves. Everything is just sort of in stasis, total stasis, no movement. And that is sort of the push in general that the death drive is sort of about. When Freud wrote about it in Beyond the Pleasure Principle, it was about a compulsion to return to inorganic, that I don't have a way to phrase it that isn't just literally an AO, so I'm going to try my best. But one of the things about being organized is that it comes with an exceptional amount of sort of psychic pain naturally. The drive underneath it is that we want to get back to, or that you want to get back to, being unorganized, undifferentiated, and inorganic. This is what, and it's for Freud, it was a personal drive. Their argument is it's not a personal drive, that it's not really even about death at all, actually, but the production of the BWO, these moments of production where the process of production and the product become self-identified in that moment. And when this happens, there's this unproductive that is surfaced, that is found, that rises up. And it is the undifferentiated at large, or yes, the pure differential, which is undifferentiated, to be like, that's how that works. That thing is like, right? Does that make sense as I'm rambling?
Yeah,
No?
I can see that. I'm just not sure how much of the pure physics of thermodynamics would play into this.
Well, it doesn't for D&G. Like they're again, I'm trying to talk about, for Freud, that's what it was. It was a drive towards the inorganic, towards like heat death, towards entropy. D&G don't view things like that. It's not this grand physics thing. Instead, the very nature of the way that production happens, there's a moment when the production and product become self-same. As they do it, as they're recognized as such, or as they self-recognize more or less, there's a moment of halt where the differential is basically arised itself, more or less.
Okay, so Freud was thinking thermodynamically, and
Freud was playing more in that direction. This is one of, like, because again, like, people talk about death drive and all that stuff when they start having this conversation about the immobile motor. They start having the same conversation about the unmoved mover, like the Aristotelian bullshit. Like, all this stuff starts coming up, and a lot of it is like, hey, I need to explain this to you so you can get off of it, because that's not the deal. You need to go elsewhere. Like, it's not the thing, but I have to kind of explain what the thing is. Koi Techos, thank you for the buck. You are a king. Thank you for all of the solar anuses. We appreciate them.
Okay, because
And Sunday, stop bullying people in my fucking chat, dude. I appreciate the bullying. It's good bullying, but thank you.
Well, that clarifies a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, it's tough to work through all of that because it's like, these are the things, right? It's all of these things. I mean, it's okay. They go on, and I think the rest of the paragraph does answer it at some point very quickly here. This is just going to bother me. Let me just fix this really quick. Because it should be judge. I know I did. I thought I'd be clever and leave it as president because that's what it was, but it doesn't matter. Jesus Christ, I'm never going to get through this paragraph, am I? For desire also desires that, death, because the full body of death is its immobile motor, as it desires life, because the organs of life are the working machine. Desire has two poles. The BWO as a mobile motor and the organic machine and its working parts. These aren't opposed. It's tough to talk about poles in this way. It's not really posed. That's not the deal we're talking about here. It's not like opposition in that way. This is a coupling. The immobile motor of the BWO and the working machine organism. Desire is like at both. It's trying to grab both, right? That's what it's doing. It's not either life or death. It's going for both of them. This death drive, the death instinct, the BWO, whatever, this is what drives desiring production without itself being productive. It is the immobile motor of things. And again, there's a reason they use the term, it rises up the undifferentiated, the enormous undifferentiated object, Spinoza substance. Oh, we've got more coming in. Happy. Look at all them. Look at all them. Bouncy, low frame rate. I need to optimize that. This is what happens when I just fucking do garbage code. It's perfectly fine.
Brooks, do you think Deleuze is borrowing from Bataille when he uses this kind of language of the productive and unproductive? Because for Bataille, it's the unproductive is the continuity, and
I mean he's borrowing from. Oh, sorry, real quick mute, JK. I mean he's borrowing from Bataille everywhere. It's really hard to say where he's not doing it. I think here he's touching into it, but there is for Bataille, desire is like, there is a leads to oblivion. There's a death drive in a very particular way that they are just definitely not going in that direction for. Right? They're playing in a very, very different way. They're pushing, and thank you, Richard. They're pushing that these things are at once and again imminent to desire itself, which is going to be really important as we get going towards later stuff with capital and all of that. You guys, I don't know what is happening. But that's it's a bit different than what Bataille is doing. There is also with this, instead of playing with the general economy, which is I think baked in, they're really starting at like ground zero. This is about the materiality of desiring machine and production, the production product combination, and then the identity of that, the self-sameness producing the thing. Right? That's the drive. I think when we get a little bit further, there is some language I think that is going to be, I feel is a little bit more Bataille. We'll get there. Sorry if I didn't answer your question, by the way, JK. I hope I did a little. I think it ties. It's hard not to. Like Bataille is suffused throughout so much Deleuze, especially this stuff. But to continue, one will not ask how it works together. The question itself is the product of abstraction. The machines of desire work only broken down in breaking ceaselessly. All right. So up front, hey, how does this all work together? Presupposes a unified totality, which again, the word full body without organs fucks with these things. Right? The full body without organs, the word full fucked with me there, personally. Just so you know, don't go that road. The unified totality, an organism is the unified totality. But D&G sort of just broke that apart, right? Asking how this immobile motor Jesus Christ, you people. Appreciate it. His name Brooks because he reads so much. I'm getting lovely. Thank you all, by the way. Nadsis, Richard, and Koitekos. Thank you guys very, very much for the support. It's very appreciated. Asking how this motor, a mobile motor, and the working machine form this whole is abstraction, and they're not doing abstraction. They're not. They're playing with literal in a lot of ways. And so it's this is Deleuze. This is the transcendental question. How is X possible? Is rejected as abstraction. Like Deleuze talks about this throughout his works. His book on Kant, Difference and Repetition, all these things are really great. But that second part, the machines of desire work only broken down in breaking down ceaselessly. The most important part of this in this paragraph, as much as it's like, oh, BW is introduced. No, this is the thing to remember. Desiring machines aren't looking for like flawless, perfect functioning. Don't idealize them like that. Desiring machines don't first work and then break down. Working is breaking down. Okay? This is the weird paradox of desiring production that fucks with a lot of people. Yes, I love you guys. The YouTube chats. Thank you very much. Paying for some food. I mean, it's working is breaking down. This is the thing, and it's the fundamental thing. Machines of desire work only broken down in breaking down ceaselessly. This is the first paragraph. It will be replayed over and over and over and over. Breaking down is malfunction, dysfunction, good. These aren't deficiencies. This is positive conditions of machinic production. Production contains unproduction, like a car running where it wears down. Yes, and what happens when it connects with the production of tire marks as it's leaving them on the ground, or the production of carbon in the atmosphere? Like these things are constant. You're making me very uncomfortable, Sunday. Look, I appreciate everyone giving me cash. If you can't afford to, please don't. I'm not exactly in a great financial place, but I don't want people who are in worse or similar financial situations throwing $5 or $10 at me, even though I appreciate it. If you can, I'm not turning that shit down. Fucking don't worry about it. But this is not a fun time in our economy, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. So genuinely, I would thank you for not donating if you can't, because I would not be able to sleep. Convenience style. I've been freeloading for 13 months. This is fair. If you're from outside the USA, give me all the money you can. Your money is more valuable than our paper. But then the next line is the point, and it's Judge Schreber lived for a long time without a stomach, without intestines, almost without lungs, the esophagus torn, without bladder, ribs crushed. He had sometimes partially eaten his own larynx, and so on. Right? This is Judge Schreber, if you remember, he was committed. He had a whole bunch of different ways of sort of reacting and dealing with the world. His delirious account of all of these things, and I will use that term ceaselessly here, is kind of the point in the clinical setting, and Guattari really attached to this. His body seems to literally lose organs. Now, let me say, he didn't actually have any of his organs removed. And when I say actually, I want to be very specific. They didn't they used to do a lot of really bad shit in some of these fucking insane asylums. They didn't actually cut out his organs and replace his stomach with a Jew's stomach, as he wrote, which is still one of my favorite. He got dyspeptic and his little upset tummy, and he's like, my stomach would never be that way. They must have cut it out and replaced it with a Jew's. And I'm like, that's old school anti-Semitism. Like, I'll take that over what we've got now any day of the week. But like that thing that's happening here, what's happened is it's not surgical removal. but it's disorganization through delusion. He's disorganized, right? That's what happened to George Schroeder. He became disorganized. His organs were destroyed, crushed, or eaten, or replaced, or whatever the fuck. The body without organs emerges through this systematic undoing of the organism here. This is a clinical illustration of the functioning of the BWO as that undifferentiated thing. This is the thing Artaud was just saying he wished would happen. And here it is, Judge Schreber doing it. It's fairly well mirrored. The body without organs is the unproductive, and yet it is produced in its place and in its hour in the connective synthesis as the identity of producing a product. The schizophrenic table is a body without organs. Yes, it's paradoxical. That's fine, by the way. We're okay with that. It is unproductive. It produces nothing. It's sterile, it's unconsumable, all that shit we just said. But it's produced, emergent within the connective synthesis itself, where producing and product become self-same, become identical. The BWO is not void, primordial void, or lack that precedes production. No. It is the product of production's collapse into itself. The schizophrenic table, we just went over it in the last paragraph. That's why we have these two together. He's calling it now, they're calling it a BWO, right? It's a thing that has been produced to the point where it is not functional anymore. It is no longer productive. Yet, it exists as product-producing identity. The table that you can't put more shit on. The schizophrenic table that they're writing about. That's the thing. Sunday. You're good. Relax. I can't tell if this is funny or not. It's starting to freak me out. Do you think it's wine Sunday? It's 3. Well, I guess it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Are you following the line though? Like the table, the reason the table's talked about? Because this is like the big deal here. And it's, as we go forward, understanding the position of the BWO in production. And when I say position, how it comes about, where it comes about, and how it is part of production. Not that it exists outside of it, not any of this shit. It is part and parcel. Just to get back to JK's question, this is, to me, if I had to align this with Bataille, it feels like this is the unproductive expenditure. Right? In the accursed share. Like, so Bataille in Accursed Share, which you should fucking read everything. You should read Notion of Expenditure too, which is, I think, underrated in its importance for AO. But for Bataille, there's a surplus created that can't be consumed. And it can't be consumed just in general within these economic systems because there's just not enough need for it or enough use or whatever it may be, that at some point it just isn't useful. If you, for example, we go out hunting, we have a small tribe and we kill an extra, fucking deer or something. We're not going to like eat ourselves sick. That's not how it works. You just have extra. And this extra that can't be consumed is something else. And it can't just be left there either. It's something else. It needs to be destroyed. It needs to be sacrificed. It needs to be frivolously squandered. We see this people. I used to talk about found money. Oh, it's found money. I've just got to spend it immediately. Like that kind of mentality is this. There's something special about this extra thing that isn't really part of that normal process. This expenditure that we're talking about is itself produced by productive processes. The structural position Bataille's using here, this is kind of where the BWO is, that there's a surplus of production. where product and production become self-same, where identity is more or less born or produced of sorts, where there's that self-same ishness, more or less, right? An identity exists somewhere, is born between the process of desiring production and a finished product that has been achieved. The table, the schizophrenic table. This is what they're talking about. I think that's what we're talking about. Does that make sense, JK? Is that the here, look out? Every desiring machine has the here, and these things then come in. The schizotable is, it's because it's schizotable and it's completed. It has an identity. It became the schizotable. Right? Don't worry. It's okay. But when I'm done, you're not going to understand the BWO. You shouldn't. If you do, wow. Like, good for you. Fucking super good for you. Instead, you should have a whole bunch of fucking questions and statements here that they need to build on, which they are going to. It's a large book. We're 7 paragraphs in, so don't expect the world. To continue, the body without organs is not the witness to an originary nothingness, no more than a remainder of a lost totality. I'll keep going. It is above all not a projection, nothing to do with the proper body, with the image of the body. It is the body without image. Fucking great language. So there's a lot of misreadings of the BWO that they're trying to get in front of here that didn't work. Didn't work at all. The first misreading is that the BWO is some kind of sign that underneath it all there is nothing. God damn, Nick. No, it's not a sign that underneath it all there's nothing. It's not a representative of an underlying nothingness, right? It's not that. BWO is an identity? No, Collie. Don't start. We don't know what it is yet. It is enormous, undifferentiated object. You have no more information to say anything else yet. Don't worry. It's meant to open up. That's all. Just leave a big open space for how desire and production functions. Okay? The BWO first is not a sign of this emptiness underneath. Okay? The BWO is also not the leftover fragment of a once complete whole that has been shattered. Another one. There's no lost totality, right? This is Kleinian, Freudian, I don't know, mourning for the absolute, if we want to talk about Hegel. This is not that, specifically. Instead, they go on, and they say, it's not a projection, okay? This has nothing to do with the proper body. This is not an influencing machine as a projection of the body as external. They're going to talk about Victor Tusk a little bit later, and that's specifically a reference to him. They are going to really shit on him next week, actually. So just as a thing. It has nothing to do with the proper body, the Merleau-Ponty's phenomenologist claim of the lived body. It has nothing to do with the body image, the psychoanalytic concept of body schema that will continue through all those things. It is the body without image. The BWO is positively, this is not a negation, it's positively, Jesus Christ, Sunday. Sunday's having it out in my chat. The lack of image is the definition of the BWO. This is not a lacking of organs. That's almost a secondary determination of things. It lacks representational apparatus of the image. So, colleague, every time you say, so BWO is, you're going to fail, because that's the thing. The BWO fundamentally escapes representation. It escapes figuration. It escapes imagination and representation in every single way. It exists outside the regime of images entirely. Fundamentally, it just is outside of that in every single way. This is in Logic of Sensation, one of my favorite books by Deleuze. He talks about the figure in painting. The figure in painting is interesting. He distinguishes it from representation because for Bacon, bodies, and for a lot of painters like him, I think, bodies are bodies without images in the sense of how D&G talks about it. The figure that is at the center of Bacon's paintings is that. And he goes on and just talks about this significantly in all of this. It is a positive definition. It's not a lack. It's defined by the missing image. Yes, I did get that correctly. Logic of Sensation is a different book than Logic of Sense, even though it sounds like they should be the same. Yes. What's the point of the BWO in the first place? Well, what's the point? That's not how things work. This is how the production of things happen. And we'll get there. This is a paragraph. This is a paragraph. It, the unproductive, it exists there where it is produced at the third time of the bilinear series. I could probably switch around the hour of, like, they have some really cool language that they use here, just fine. But it's there's some really interesting points. But the fundamental thing they're getting across here is that the BWO exists where it is produced, where it is surfaced. It doesn't exist elsewhere. This is not another world. This is not an inescapable thing. This is not outside of materiality at all. It is not a projected ideal. Its mode of existence is radical immanence. It's there at that third beat of the connective syntheses, right? Producing product. Their identity is the BWO, not image. Their identity is the BWO, not image, not representation. That self-same moment. The concept had to be created for a reason. I linked above, Mehdi, to a wonderful paper. If you scroll up, here, I'll make sure I say it again. Or did I already miss it? One second. There's a really good PDF that I linked to that now I can't find because I'm just terrible at this. I don't want to upload it again. I've uploaded this PDF like 1,000 times. What is immanent stasis? No, but the BWO is immanent. It is perpetually reinjected into production. The BWO isn't outside production. It doesn't stay there. It is reinjected. The word they use, reinjected. It is pumped back into this productive system. Anti-production is not a negation of production. It is an internal movement to production itself. It is the moment where production cycles production itself ceaselessly. Right? I thought the BWO was a primordial egg. It is. We're not there yet. You're not in context. Don't mix these conversations. Different. They're different points at different points in the book for a reason. This is talking about the topology of desiring production explicitly. Let's finish it out. The catatonic body is produced in the bathwater. The full body without organs is anti-production, but it is still a character of the connective or productive synthesis to couple production to anti-production to an element of anti-production. The catatonic body, the bathwater, this is straight out of like Guattari's like time working at the clinics. There is a clinically immobile body, the catatonic body. This is produced. It is not something that you discover in the water of the bath. When you take a body and you put it in the bathwater, which is standard treatment for people who are catatonic at the time. There's a lot. I mean, maybe it's still in the setup. Don't know. At the time, it was a big deal. And what would happen is you take catatonic patients and put them in baths, right? That's the thing that would happen. This is the point they're making, is that the catatonic body is produced in the water of the bath. They're not being metaphorical here. This is a direct thing, right? The phrasing, it's produced in the bath water. It's produced in that moment. It isn't outside. It isn't outside of this. This is not, these things are literally this thing. This is not an abstract concept. The material conditions of the asylum produced this condition. And they continue, the full body without organs is anti-production, still a character of the connective. What they mean when they're ending this is that the BWO, which is anti-production, which occurs at the moment of self-sameness of production and product, is coupled to production by the connective synthesis. Okay? The connective synthesis isn't just producing shit. It is coupling. There's a phrase they use constantly, and it's really important, is the coupling and connection. This isn't just like randomness and then flitting about. They are very, very specific in their wording about this. The way that this happens is connection and cutting. And the BWO also couples production with its own negation of things, and that's anti-production. Anti-production is not an enemy of production that arrives from outside of things. It's going to be important later. Just follow this and just deal with it and just accept it. I'm not going to spend the time because they're going to build it out. It's a really important thing to understand how capitalism functions. Like literally, this is the important part to understand this shit, right? Did someone block Sunday? What happened? What happened here? Sunday, what did Sunday do? What happened today? What a weird fucking day. What happened here? Estelle? Being a jokester. Fair enough. All right. Undo that. To understand capitalism, you can't be thinking of yourself as a totality or a full body. I'm so upset with myself for how long this took me to turn together. It's way more recent than I would like to admit, but it isn't about just simply sort of, out there, these things are happening. No, the inherent moment of self-negation is within the thing itself, within the production itself. Production produces anti-production. Not, we're produced and then we produce anti-production and lack. No, stop that. Anti-production is then re-injected into it. It's part and parcel of it. It is the very moment that production and product become self-same, become identical, become sort of in that moment of halting. And this is when we talk about capital as dead labor, which a guy wrote a book about. It's a pretty good book called Money, I think. Dead labor dominates living labor from Marx, right? So capital, which is anti-production, it's in that. It's produced by labor. It's produced by labor, which is production. It then turns back on labor to extract surplus value, right? That's the basic line. Capital is dead labor that vampire-like only lives by sucking labor. They literally are going to use this line later. And again, this is Bataille's accursed share. So JK, probably fair enough as a thing. Like, that's probably fair enough. I think Holland even says specifically. But the phrasing here is important. As all of this comes together, as all of this is said, it's not anti-production in totality. It is this element of anti-production, partial and local here. now, dos, that happens. It's not a transcendent negation that exists. It is within production itself. I still got a little trigger happy. Does that make sense to everyone as I go over this? Does that make sense to everyone on Discord? As I'm saying these things?
I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but it makes sense for me.
So it's not going to fully make sense completely yet, and it won't. That's fine. This is them laying out in the first 7 paragraphs of the book just the sort of process of production, how they talk about production, and how production has a weird moment where when connection happens and production and product become self-same, now you have this undifferentiated. It was kind of always there. Of course it was. The pure differential, as Josh says. That thing is part of the process, and it's not part of, oh, we have all of connection happening and then the BWO, which is how some take it. I have in the past. Perfectly fine. You're talking about every connection that becomes self-same BWO, like the production of this enormous undifferentiated object. It is enormous undifferentiated object that they're driving at. Everything's immanent. Everything's eminent. That's the way to consider it. Any questions, any thoughts before I bounce out? Because this has now been almost 3.5 hours of 2 paragraphs, and I feel like that's enough. So production and anti-production are both abstracts. No. There's nothing abstract in this conversation yet. There's no abstractions yet. They are talking about things absolutely as they happen. Don't worry. I know it's a lot to take. And I know you're like, but it's clearly an abstraction, Brooks. They're using words that, what the fuck? Don't worry. We get there. We will get there. How do French communicate in their day-to-day if this is how long it takes to understand a paragraph of French? Well, this is why they get really upset whenever you try to speak French in France, and they're just like, just be a fucking American and order your goddamn burger. Not that I've experienced that at all. I have. What is an element of anti-production? An element of object measurement of thing. Anti-production is a positively produced moment or thing in the, like a thing in the process that, and again, they're going to be talking about this at length, but very specifically, anti-production here is, as they're talking about, produced in every one of those micro connective moments. When you have connection, thing, connect, connect, cut, great. But when there is a self-same between production and product, when that identity happens, there's a halting. There's a of the impulses. Klosowski would call it a moment of perspective self-recognition, which I really like the language of. It's a little bit more abstract than they're wanting to go. They're wanting to be really material. That's the thing. Right? We'll be getting the next paragraph is going to be talking about all of this. And they're going to end up making their way entirely through all of desiring production. And then we're going to basically spend a section for each part of desiring production. And then all of chapter 2 is about how psychoanalysis gets it wrong, which is going to be easily the least fun part of this, I think. I say that, and then I'm going to come to regret that later. It'll end up being probably amazing. And then chapter 3 is about how all of this comes together in how our social world is built by these processes. And it's genuinely, I think, wonderful, to be very honest. So, but I'm not hearing anyone screaming that they've got stuff, and I am ready to go. I got to go dad it up. Side note, clavicular and Adam, I know who Adam Friedland is. I don't, clavicular. I don't care. What the fuck? I hate knowing things. There's so many things every day I just wish I just didn't have to learn. Not this, though. I love this, and I love all of you, and I want to appreciate and say thank all of you in every single way for joining. It's easily highlighted my week as we talk about. Thursdays, do join for Klosowski, Nietzsche and the Vicious Circle. Tomorrow night I'll be doing a stream, probably more of an Anti-Oedipus open house, and then this weekend I'll be doing the same thing as I did last week, where I just do a straight reading explanation for the podcast of just my lovely, lovely, lovely voice. And Sunday spamming the chat. Thank you very much. I'm happy to do this, and I will see you all absolutely next fucking week. Go to the chats, go to the comments, and yell at me, and tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I can do better. Join me on Discord to tell me in person, which you can do. Discord.gg/DGQC. Brilliant way to do it. If you like what I do, patreon.com/DGQC. $5 a month. If you can't afford it, absolutely helps. Every single thing, as Sunday is screaming, donate, 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 donate. I just want to ban Sunday. We all just want to ban Sunday, but it's, we accept the lesser among us. And with that, I'm going to see, do I have anywhere I give a shit about sending anybody? Sunday, are you live? Is that why you're doing this? Are you doing this until I fucking rage you or something? Is there like, or are you just like tired? I can't even tell what happened. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got on YouTube. So send anyone anywhere. Man, there are so many Epstein streams right now. I'm not going to send anyone to it because that shit's triggering as fuck. But man, I just talk about stuff I don't want to know that I know. All of that. Well, it looks like there's not going to be a lot of live shit right now. Wild. That's frustrating. I could send you to the Young Turks. I won't be doing that. I'm just going to say it's been lovely. I thank all of you. Oh my God. Thank you very much. And that's just for the 20 appealing. And just here to watch the trash fire. Thank you for the 5 memberships. Psycho, Graham, Godthrus, Chase, and Jason. Welcome to the collective. Thank all of you very much for the support. It means a lot. And thank you very much. New stuff on Epstein, not new stuff. It's just people are finally cross-posting. Like there's literally so much that like you read a thing and you're like, wait, this is, oh God. Like Virginia Giuffre's fucking lawyer talking with Epstein and his lawyers about, we'll just say it's not great. Would I recommend reading Holland's book is easily my favorite secondary text on AO. I don't think reading it alongside and referencing it, which is kind of how it's structured, I think is the way to go. The book I would immediately recommend afterwards is Lapoujad's Aberrant Movements, which you're going to hear me using a lot of language from in my notes. And it's almost impossible for me because he's just very good when it comes to how he talks about Deleuze. You're going to hear me sort of parroting it, but I would say read AO, join us as we go, read Holland's thing when he's got reference. It's the best way to do it. It's great. But with that, I'm going to send you over to nobody, and I'm just going to thank you for being here and say, hey, thank all of you. Means a lot. See y'all soon enough.